Welcome to Warcraft Reloaded, a podcast brought to you by Mash Those Buttons, covering World of Warcraft Classic and its community. I'm Bobby, also known as Blazin' Bob, and I'm joined by Mel, aka Melarina. How you doing?
Hello, I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm good. It's been a crazy few days, crazy week, but we'll get in and talk about that. But yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Also, founding member of the podcast, TheYipShow, aka Ryan. How you doing?
Hello, it's me. I'm sick, but I took an extremely hot shower and drank some tea just before this, so I think we'll be good. I got sick just in time for Ulduar progression.
It's the worst, right?
Perfect timing.
I don't see anybody. I don't go outside. I don't know who got me sick.
Right?
Man,
But
yeah.
here we
Worst time. Probably just all the excitement kept you up. I don't know. Something.
I don't know, but I'm sick for Ulduar, and I got into a car crash the day Wrath came out, so
I know, man.
Expansions are not good to you.
Man,
we're taking L's every release.
have you even gotten a new car? I thought you were thinking about not getting a new car.
Nope. No, I do not have a new car yet. I don't need one where I am right now, so I'll probably need to get one in a couple months when I move. But yeah,
South Dakota.
potentially South Dakota.
Yeah, we've been
They have
sitting
gigabit internet.
gigabit internet.
There you go.
We've been sitting here on two cars, and we haven't needed two cars since the pandemic. Like, one car's just been sitting there. One car was sitting there so long, the battery died because it hadn't been started for 9 months. I was just like, oh, I didn't know that happened because I've never had a car that just sat. But yeah,
Post pandemic, I feel like just going out habits have changed so much that two people are never out at the same time.
Right.
to different places.
Yeah. And if you are, you're together. So it doesn't really matter.
We'll go to the store, and then you just
Yeah.
get one car.
Yep. The only times has been when Melissa goes to Oklahoma because that's the only place that she travels and she still drives, but she still could fly there.
How far is that? Once you get past the coast, I don't understand the size of the country. What is that drive?
It's like 4.5 hours.
Yeah, from Kansas City to Oklahoma City. And Kansas City is at the very top of Kansas, so it's a long, boring
It just makes
drive.
more sense to drive, right? Because I would have to get to the airport an hour early and then take an hour flight and then rent a car. In all, it's probably more travel time to fly. But
And if you are looking to move, Kansas City is one of the fastest growing cities in the country. It's also one of the richest per capita counties right outside of Kansas City, also with one of the lowest costs of living that you can find.
Low cost of living is definitely good.
And gigabit internet.
Yeah, most places have gigabit internet. But they don't have the other two requirements, which is very cheap and then 2, indoor pool.
No,
I'm looking for an indoor pool.
It's pretty cheap, man. I mean, you can get
I'll look around.
Yeah, what
into anything.
A 4,000 square foot 2-bedroom, finished basement house for $400,000 and under.
Okay. That's big. I'm looking for apartment living though. Let's keep that.
Oh, yeah,
I don't think you'll find anything. Okay, that's really good, but that is what looking in South Dakota, I don't want this to turn into a podcast, South Dakota podcast time, but all utilities included except for cable, $1,200, and it's the luxury apartment complex. It's got an indoor pool. It's got the fitness center. It's got a dog park, the outdoor, and it's dang, dude, that seems insane.
I could be crazy, but I think that's where Salve Dally moved to start streaming.
I thought it was Indiana.
Was it? It was somewhere.
He's actually my inspiration. Well, not my inspiration, but I like that idea of all I need is a room and good internet.
And cheap.
Yeah, for both gaming and my job. So it doesn't really matter. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, just head to wherever's cheapest. That's the.
Nice,
See, there you go.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank our tank patrons at the top of the show, and Thick Lizzie and Croxford. Thank you so much for your support, and thanks to all of the patrons that support us each week. I'd also like to mention that we stream this live on twitch.tv/BlazinBob. It's BLAZZINBOB. I want to encourage you guys to check out restedxp.com for all your classic WoW and retail WoW guides. Use the code RELOADED at checkout to save 5%, and link will be in the description. They'll also be doing more games soon, so watch out for that. It's not going to be just Warcraft, so check that out. We're going to start the show off with voicemails. Then we're going to move into what we've been doing besides Ulduar. Then we're going to swap up news and discussion because we're going to talk about our progression into Ulduar, and I want to make sure we get all of that in. So we're going to get to as much news as we can before raid, because all three of us have to go tank raid. And so we'll be getting through as much news as we can, but there was a ton of it. So yeah, that's going to be the show. So first off, the voicemails. Now I want to remind everybody that you can call in to 816-866-1066 if you're in the United States. It is free on your cell phone. If you are outside of the States, you can go to speakpipe.com/Warcraft Reloaded. Link is in the description, and you can leave a voicemail there. I'll also have another option for you that a listener built out. I just haven't had the time to go through and test it and put it out there yet, but I wanted to give him, he worked on this and, just trying to make something cool. So I want to use that too, but I just haven't had a chance to do it yet. So with that being said, let's go ahead and listen to the first voicemail.
Hey, Mel and Bob, and hopefully Yip too. Maybe he can give me some pointers. This is Bernimer on ATS. I'm the guy that called out Mel for falling on Thaddeus, even though she has Levitate. My guild is pretty casual, so we don't have a second-man team. Our GM recently has been asking our officers to start one so that we have more people getting loot before the 25-man raid on the weekend. I'm a cata baby, so this is all new content for me, and I've never been raid lead before, but with the announcement of Ulduar, I felt I had to step up. I've been trying to learn the fights, not just so I can reduce my mistakes, but I want to be able to answer all the questions, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot because we're a casual guild. I'm sure half the guild won't even bother watching the videos, but I spent 3 hours last night on just Flame Leviathan because there's so many roles between 3 vehicles, and we all have to coordinate. I did my best to write the assignments on the spreadsheet, but we only had 6 out of 10 sign up on the Discord. Obviously, it's a bit late now. By the time you record an answer, if you do, our raid night will be past, but any tips you have on being a good raid lead, I'm sure I could still use them. Second thing.
Okay, so we'll just stop at that first thing because it's pretty interesting. It's something Yip has just dealt with recently. Before we start, though, I'll jump in and say you spent too much time on Flame Leviathan. If you were going to do hard mode, it's literally a joke. So yeah,
definitely a case of probably overthinking the situation. I'm not a good raid lead. I don't know the fights ahead of time. Now I learn them. I watch the videos and read the guides, and I keep them up while we play. So I'm not somebody who comes in I know everything that this fight does, and I know why it's happening and the damage that it takes. But if you know how to look at logs or take some time to look at details, it's very easy to find why people died, and you just start there to address issues usually. So that's step one, is figuring out what's going wrong on the fly. It's definitely more important to be able to figure things out on the fly than it is to come knowing what all the fights do. Most fights are very easy with just a couple mechanics. And I don't mean in Ulduar, just in general in WoW. They're not going to create insane fights for 15 different bosses or something. So for Flame Leviathan, we came with a spreadsheet like you did, very prepared. But I feel at the end of the day, just get everyone in a demo, get people in the siege have a couple choppers, it really doesn't matter that much. And I think when you wing it, like, it's totally fine. You just need to know like the base mechanics that people need to do, and then be able to call out those base mechanics as they happen. And DBM can help with that. Having your raid have a weak aura pack like Thames, I think there's another one floating around as well too. We'll just pop stuff up on raiders' screens to say get out of that, and minimally you won't have to be calling like, hey, get out of the fire, you know, like those sort of calls you shouldn't really have to be making. But yeah, 3 hours on Flame of Leviathan is a long time. It makes, but you should really just have to damage the guy and then he dies.
Yep. And I mean, you do want to have the siege tanks interrupt, but I mean, I think on normal mode we had it happen like twice that we had to interrupt or something like that.
And I'm always out of energy because I'm attacking, so like I interrupt like halfway through the cast anyway. Like I never have it available when it comes out. I mean, for general raid leading, honestly, being able to just find in details how people died is really the greatest start that you can have. And then you just take it from there.
Method raid tools is extremely powerful. I had to get it recently because I need to watch for specifically, divine sack for paladins and pain suppression for disciplined priests, so I can hopefully call it out the right times so that our raid lead doesn't have to do that. But our raid lead has it. And you can see everybody's cooldowns. There's so many tools. Like I haven't gone through everything, but if you're going to be raid leading, method raid tools is going to be really nice. I think it tells you if your people are consumed. It tells you all kinds of different details. So it tells you the gear everybody has.
Being the raid leader doesn't mean you have to like do everything by yourself either. Like if you split up learning bosses or split up learning trash, that's super useful. Like Bob's talking about calling defensive cooldowns and externals, like that's what the tank should be doing, not necessarily the raid leader. I didn't catch if he was also a tank, but you don't need to. The tank really should want responsibility over that because they're the ones like watching the boss and they know what their health is and they know if like a cast is about to happen. It's just so much easier for the tank to be doing that stuff. So don't feel like you need to take on like everything yourself. Like have a healer step up and like help tell healers what they need to be healing. That sort of stuff can go a long way.
Yep. And yeah, as far as recruiting and stuff, like you're probably going to have to, we had to pug for the first like month or 5 weeks or something, and like that could be a way to find guild people because like, if they're coming to a pug run, that's like, it might not be great for, you guys might be giving gear to other people because we definitely did that. But if you do soft res stuff, there's a lot of people who don't want to run GDKPs, and you can find those people in, those pug runs. And so that could be a way to recruit extra for your extra raid. But it's definitely an uphill battle, but it's been great for us. And, just take some work from your leadership and And
I hate to say it, but those 30-second guides that one guy makes are actually like very serviceable for a DPS to exclusively use as their prep for Ulduar. Like just being told like, hey, this ability happens, move left or something is just like, that's really the most important stuff. Having people have a tiny bit of familiarity with the fight like that, it can be useful too.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, I'm going to go ahead and continue.
I just wanted to mention about the PI after listening to your newest episode with Jordy. I'm a Disc Priest in Classic. I started a Disc Priest in Classic, and I raid with my wife who's a boomy, so there was never a question about who was getting it. I had to configure 3 pop-ups on Tell Me When to make sure that we got it on cooldown. The guild eventually needed a Resto Shaman, so I boosted one, and that's my main now. Recently, our Disc G quit, so she's been asking me to go back and get PI full time. She's been asking me to go back to Discipline so she can get the PI full time. Anyway, I'm just going to throw it out there that the most important caster Dis is going to be a Discipline spouse.
Okay, I don't know. what the question
that
was.
is definitely true. I don't think it's a question. I think it's a comment. And Bob, if you were playing a Warlock right now, you'd be getting Mel's PI.
100%.
I think that's the whole comment.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly,
yeah. When Bob played a Warlock, I was holy the whole like last expansion.
Yeah, true.
The whole, yeah.
Yeah, I guess probably people probably wouldn't argue with that. But if the raid lead was like told me like, hey, if it was up against me and FJ and we were trying to prog on a fight, like I would just have to be like, I get it, but as soon as we're out of prog, I get it back, type of deal or something like that, But like if your raid needs it, I mean,
tell me FJ said it was fine.
If you're casual though, I mean, it might be different, but yeah.
I have a hot take. For the most part, if you're using it during like lust phase or something, when most people have their feet planted anyway, almost every caster is going to do the same increased DPS from PI, because like the differences in casters are like how much they move and stuff. Everyone can spam like their rotation, I feel like, for most casters. So give it to whoever you want, unless someone's trying to parse. Let people parse. Does PI count for parses actually still?
PI does, because they couldn't figure out how to pull it out. Whereas like Tricks is like a straight up % damage boost, so they just remove that % while it's up,
Like Fire Elemental gets pulled out on the logs. It's pretty brutal.
Well, it's interesting because fights in Nax were so short typically that you got one PI. Like now it's like this game of like, when do I ask for PI so that I can get another PI in the same boss, I
will also say, if you don't have a Disc Priest, then I feel you kind of need to go back to Disc Priest. You need one. If you already still have one, adding two really kind of hurts your raid and really makes it annoying for the Disciplined Priests, because Bubble, like, it really messes them up.
Yeah, what did we do? We did a Nax. Oh, when we did just the SAF KT Nax, I think our Discipline Priest from our weekend raid came. I was like, oh no, these people have bubbles already. What's happening? Like my whole like rotation, if that's what you call it, of bubbles across different people was very impacted.
Yeah, and that first bubble's insane. Like we did, and we'll talk about this as we talk about Ulduar more. I did a second 10-man without a Disc Priest, and it's very noticeable on some mechanics. Like you go from people like going down to half health to like almost dying to mechanics. It's like, oh dang.
Yep. So all right, but he did leave another one with an interesting.
Hey, Mela Bob, and again, hopefully Yip too. This is Bernimer calling back. I got a couple more things I wanted to ask. Sorry if I'm making this a bit longer than it should be, but the past couple of weeks, over the holiday that you guys were taking a break, I went back and started listening to your old episodes, just because I can't get enough of you guys while I'm working. I had a blast hearing about your progression struggles through the SSC and Lady Bash and KT. Again, I was a Cata baby, so I didn't know that content, but I still really enjoyed your updates week by week and was wondering if you would bring that back for Ulduar. I'm also a bit of a goblin, so my guild made me the G-Bank manager, and I got a kick out of your episode with Kim Jong-un. Is he still making gold for you guys, and what is your primary income for the G-Bank? I'd love an update for Wrath from him. I'm currently making about 15K a week off of mostly glyphs and enchants. There's even more that we make from the unused BOEs. I'm really happy that we're going to be able to do the enchants and gems and consumes and even the crafted gear in Ulduar. We don't really need the gold, so we don't have to sell the crafts that we make with the rune orbs. Anyway, good work and good luck in phase 2. Looking forward to hearing from you guys. Thanks.
All right. Yeah. We would love to have an update from Kim. I don't know if he is available or wants to, but
I can just quickly answer on Kim's behalf. Kim has ascended and is no longer playing like he's not a gold goblin anymore. He's just on another level. I'm pretty sure he's probably approaching double gold cap at this point. But he also wastes a lot of gold. That's something to keep in mind. He spent he'll spend like 20K on his rogue and a GDKP, like that kind of stuff. But I do want to throw out a tip in case you are the one making everything for your guild bank. Kim employs like an army of profession people to make different profession gear or different profession items to sell. If you're the gold goblin, management is definitely more important than you just sitting there all the time crafting stuff. So definitely take advantage of like other professions in your guild. Send them mats to craft stuff and sell and put into the G bank. It helps a lot. And we don't really have a G bank income. Like I think we hit like 100K plus like items in there, and I don't think we're like actively restocking. I know Kim's still making money, but I don't know if we're doing anything like specifically for the guild bank to keep growing. But Kim can talk on that when he comes on one day.
Yeah, he kind of like gamified getting different orders filled, kind of like what retail's putting in, where like you fill orders and stuff or whatever. I've heard about it, but I haven't done it. Kim has a Discord where he, says he needs this. He'll send you the mats, but you get to keep like excess mats, or you get some sort of gold incentive. So if you do this extra stuff, you get rewarded for it too. So he's got a whole big system that he goes through. It's pretty impressive. So yeah, it would definitely be nice to have him on again. All right. Oh, what was the other question? The other question was,
updates.
We're doing.
Hi, that's why I'm here.
Yep. So we are planning on doing get-togethers, talking about like our hard mode progressions with Yip. I don't know if they'll be weekly or bi-weekly. But yes, we plan on doing that and slotting them into the show. So yeah, stay tuned for that. It'd be good.
Ooh.
All right. Next one.
So if you're in Varg, stay tuned to listen to what Yip has to say about your performance, pretty much.
All right, here's the next one.
Hey, Bob and Mel. This is Buttercup from Aranicus. First time caller. I've been listening for maybe a month or two. First and foremost, thank you guys so very much, man. You all make my day. The day just goes by so fast. I'm laughing, I'm enjoying, and I'm learning. And it really makes my experience playing WoW Classic that much more fun, and my day even more fun. I guess my only question is, I play a Destro lock, I guess the worst kind of lock. It's just a couple of things, right? So do Destro locks get any better? I know they're not bad, right? I'm not doing too bad. I think I'm doing well in my guild. I'm topping most of the meters as a Destro lock. But if I remember correctly from when I was a kid, and these might be rose-tinted goggles, that Destro lock was pretty banging during ICC. Is that going to be the case? I see all these reviews saying Destro lock is maybe B tier and whatnot. So, yeah, if you have any experience or thoughts on that, I would love to hear them in any sense. That's all I got for you. I'm so appreciative of you guys. Thank you so much again. Have a rockin' day.
All right, one, how much do you pay these people? And then two, do any of us even actually know the answer? Like, I know that Destro is supposed to be like C or B tier in the entire expansion. And I think that they're probably best like right now, I think is what I've seen. I mean, they obviously get better, but like compared to other specs, but I don't actually know that. Do
we have a Destro lock?
No way.
No, we don't.
I mean, to put it on, like, I mean, honestly, we're just like our weekday rate, especially, like, we just wouldn't bring in the non-optimal specs, basically. And Affy is very strong, and Destro brings like raid benefit. I mean, we also only have 3 warlocks, so it's kind of like,
yeah,
there's not that much to go around. Destro is still like good. Like, do you want to bring in like, I don't know, another hunter or a Destro lock? You'd say yes to the Destro lock, but it's like a little odd. It's definitely cool though, right? It's fun. Like, you just blast, like, I played Destro like in WoD. I don't know what it's like in during this, but I assume it's more mage-like. You're just like casting big hits on people.
Yeah, and keeping up different dots and expelling
all
the
of our
dots.
locks happy?
No,
we have a Chuckle as demo. That's why he gets into melee and turns into a demon and then dies on patchwork.
I mean, Chuckle just dies always. So
because he's a caster melee. He does like insane AoE and just like walks in and dies.
So what I can tell you from my experience back in vanilla is Destro was basically used for a long time. I mean, we had Destro locks. We didn't really have Affy or Demo locks because like Destro locks were so good in TBC, there just wasn't the testing and everything else going on in the big guilds. It's honestly the same now. Like it's just gone to different classes. Like people aren't like Yip said in the weekday raid, we just wouldn't take one. People aren't willing to like test things out. Like, so like it's possible they do get better. I mean, when I raided Destro, I raided the previous content because my rogue was my main, but I still went in pug runs on the lock and I did Destro, in Nax and in Ulduar, and I did really good. So I don't know, but Affy has just been seen to do so much more on private servers. Everybody's kind of going by that, by those things, but people just aren't willing to test things. Like, for instance, I tested my combat rogue. I tested on a dummy, switching out all of my gems to armor pen, right? Because no one's trying that, and I really think that all of the spreadsheets don't read it correctly, because all the research that I do from Elitist Jerks back in the day shows me that after 350 to 400 armor pen on a combat rogue and feral druid, which are very similar in how they gear, at least it was back in the day, like armor pen at that point becomes their best stat. And there's nothing that says that, like even Simon Eyes says it's crazy, but he does say that he bases everything on the Sims. And I just don't think the Sims read armor pen correctly. It's a very weird thing. But when I tested it on a dummy, now this is without raid buffs, with 200 or 315 armor pen, I was doing the exact same damage as I was with all attack power gems. So I just left them in there, and in Ulduar so far, I'm pumping. Like, if I don't screw up, I am up there, and that was not the case in Nax. So it's been interesting, and I'll keep watching. But I mean, you're just going to have to test it out, because no one's that's up in the high ends willing to take the time and cash to like really test it. So that's kind of where I am there. But I mean, they seem to do fine. And as far as like, if you look at the Nax stuff, I mean, they're not at the very bottom, but they're definitely not at the top. So I don't know. If your guild's cool with it, play what you want to play, in my opinion. But back in the day,
totally play what you want to play. But if you look up like Wowhead DPS rankings and stuff like that, they don't even like list the spec. Like, it's like there is like a treatment to certain specs in the game. But yeah, I mean, obviously they still pump harder than a lot of specs that you do bring, so it's really not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I think Wowhead put out the ending ones, and like they were at the bottom of the list, basically towards the bottom. I can't find it at the moment, but yeah, they were basically at the bottom. But also, don't look at Wowhead. Like, if we get to the news, we'll be talking about their Ulduar DPS tier lists, and I don't know whoever wrote it. Me and many others, including Sarth, just want to know what their thought process was behind this, because it's, in many's opinion, just outright wrong. But we might get to that later. Let's go ahead and move on.
Hey, Warcraft Reloaded. Jonka calling back here. I just want to start off with saying, still love the show. Keep up the awesome work. I was just listening to the most recent episode with Jordy, and what I'm calling about here is, Bob, you mentioned that as a melee DPS, it's tough with very large bosses and mobs to see their nameplates for tracking debuffs and all of that stuff. And I don't know what you use, but it's certainly possible for Plater, and I did a quick Google before I called, and it seems there is some kind of option for the other add-ons and options, but I do use Oro's Plater nameplate, and it's something that I have. It, like, clamps the nameplate to the top of the screen, even if it were normally to go above it, to track, like, my Flame Shock debuff, Storm Strike ETC. So, yeah, I just wanted to let you know, and anybody else that might listen and have the problem, just, throw it a quick Google, whatever add-on you use, LVUI, threat plates, Plater. It's definitely doable with Plater, and I'm at work and not in front of my computer, so I couldn't be too specific with it, but definitely possible. Again, keep up the great work. Love the show.
This is awesome, because I'm going to have to check threat plates and see if there's a setting for that, but Zatar told us to use
Tell me what he's talking about again.
When you highlight a mob and have their nameplates on, it shows like a little health bar above their head.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people track their debuffs using that health bar. So if I have like a Sunder up, which I would never do because I'm not a warrior, but if I want to see if it's about to drop off, they'll look there. But if a boss is really big, you actually can't see that by default anymore. Like, it goes above his head, so it's out of your line of sight. So
yes.
And what he's saying,
worth checking out, if you can fix it to the top.
What he's saying this will do is it'll just pull it down to the top of the screen if it's out of your view, which could be really nice. I mean, it's not a huge thing because, like lots of stuff does it, but like say on Iron Council, I had to tank the two guys while you actually main tanked that fight. Well, like I like to keep 5 Sunders up on both targets, so I can always see what I have up on the target I'm on. But like with the plates, I can see when that's starting to run out, and I can switch to the other target, throw, re-up Sunder, and like those types of things are like really nice. Or on a rogue, if I'm on 2 targets, and I'm trying to put a bleed on each of them, I can see when that stuff's running out, yada yada. Say we're doing, different things, but like that could be really nice. Like when I'm taking really tall things and a few of them, I'm always like, I'm just going to tab to see if I have aggro on all these targets, So that'll be something. If threat plates doesn't do it, maybe I'll look to switch to Plater, because Zatar speaks very highly of it.
Plater is objectively better than threat plates. However, I don't use it, so I can't tell you all the ways, but as a tank who frequents tank discords, pretty much unanimously people say once you get better.
Okay, well, thank you so much for sending in the voicemail. We appreciate it. This next one is kind of hard to hear, so I apologize.
Hey, Mel and Bob. This is Ellie Locker, or Stop for Days, or Death for Days, Carolina. It's currently 5:30 in the morning, and I am driving to work on Ulduar Explorer Release Day. It's very depressing. But I would just like to say I love your podcast. Very awesome to listen to with my hour and a half commute. I work in the prison system, so it's definitely a good thing for a de-stressor. Just wanted to say a couple things. Because of the unholy DK nerf, I had to re-roll to Warlock, which is pretty awesome, actually. Warlock might be the top class in Ulduar. I'm in a guild that we PTR'd. I've PTR'd multiple times. And I just wanted to say a weird take. I think that everyone will at least wipe one world first race today. And I think Team Car will win. And I think they'll be stacking Paladin because that is the best prop. But yeah, thanks for the show and everything. I really hope you guys keep going. Love you guys.
So he was given a prediction that Beef Bar would get the world first. I can confirm that he did leave this voicemail 12 hours prior to raid opening, and he was right. Beef Bar won. So that's one bit of news we got out of the way there.
Good guilds definitely do good.
Yeah.
Yep. And Beef Bar, I believe, is the only classic guild where people get paid. And they just work for world first. So you know,
and they better win, right?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to beat them.
Want to get paid.
They did a ton of different swaps. Like they were basically like the people swapping in were basically getting gear in 10-man prior to getting swapped in. They were getting fed gear in 10-mans. And so, yeah, they were impressive. Definitely, you know, definitely props to them. And yeah, there was a lot of guilds that did wipe. There's a few guilds that didn't hit the damage on, what was it, Hodir? It's one of the hard modes that they didn't hit
Hodir. The only guild that got it on our server was Fusion, and their kill time is 2:01 on Warcraft logs, and you have to kill it in 2 seconds. So it must be like they must have just made it.
Man, it's crazy. But yeah, thank you for your voicemail, and glad that we can bring some joy to your life while you're on your way to work. All right, yeah, there were a lot of voicemails this week, guys. So didn't have any new reviews, didn't have anything else, but what have you guys been doing in WoW lately besides Ulduar?
Dailies.
Yeah, what are the daily things called? What do we call those?
Titan Rune Dungeons.
Okay,
and it's defense.
Certainly never seen anyone do that.
Yeah, Defense Protocol Alpha is what you. It's a Titan Room dungeon, and Defense Protocol Alpha is what you.
Plus,
like,
I'm going with H plus.
Right.
Heroic plus feels better there, but a lot of those been doing those daily on both my characters. A lot of people have been pumping those out. Don't like them very much. I think they're fine. I think that they need to overhaul it again to just be Mythic Plus, because I think that they should like randomize the affixes that dungeons get maybe on a weekly basis or something, like how Mythic Plus works. I kind of hate that we're getting repeat dungeons every day. It's Halls of Stone again today, and then like they're just going to be the same every time. Like, yeah.
It's cool learning all the skips that we could do, though. Like, because there's so many of them.
You don't get the achievement.
I know, that's a bummer.
It's kind of stinks, but it's like, I like the increased health and I like the increased damage. It makes it feel like we're actually doing a heroic, and then you're seeing the mob's abilities for the first time.
I know, it's weird.
In Old Kingdom felt hard because the poisons that the spiders do were like actually going out versus like just murdering everything in there, and you don't see the poisons come out from the spider.
Right.
You just win. So that alone I felt like was cool, but everything was sort of like muted by the fact that we're just getting constantly web wraps. So it's like not as interesting, I don't think. I think that the web, like some of these affixes are so they just change up what you're doing so much. They're just kind of annoying to deal with, and I think not like fun longevity. I like the increased health and damage, but maybe they should have like ramped it or done something different, like the healing and the Gundrak ones. It's like, okay, that's fine. It just takes forever. Like
it's annoying as hell. The Gundrak ones. The Gundrak ones are so hard to see. Like I'm like, oh shit, it's in one. Like it's just like, what the fuck?
And
especially
it's like really slow at first, right? It's like you don't notice, and then all of a sudden they're full health, and you're like, damn it.
Yeah, bosses are the worst.
I think the problem is a lot of I haven't done all of them. I've only done like the dailies that come out. But a lot of the like affixes that happen, the problem is that they like disincentivize you pulling big. So like the more mobs there are, the more web wrappings that are going to get shot out. Like the more mobs there are, the more like healing blood boil things on the ground are going to come out. So you're just sitting there like doing one pull at a time, hanging out. Like I'd rather do like a big pull with a ton of damage and it's like wild, but it's not like I'm getting web wrapped and like everything moves away from me. Like it's just longevity reasons. It's not that fun of a mechanic. I think it's fun the first time to be like, oh, this is hard. But like when you're just like trying to get your daily done, it's sort of like,
yeah, well, and
it's just sort of whatever.
So like there was, it has been kind of cool, Fru in chat talks about, you have to learn how to do them differently. Like one thing that I learned going through the Gundrak and Draktheron ones where basically the heal is a leech. So when they're in the stuff, they only heal if they hit you. So something that I learned
and stuff
was like, I could use my group stun as soon as I see it. Then I walk out and then they come out, at me afterwards, So like that helps a ton because I'm the one that they're going to hit because my threat's higher than everybody else. You can't have the problem where people stay in and they take over threat and then one of them hits them, but most likely it's not all of them. And, if it's a caster, they're running out towards them. So it's kind of cool in that sense where you find different strategies, but at the same time, one thing we can talk about, though, are we all happy? This is another piece of the news. Are we all happy that they changed the bags to go to everybody instead of just one person?
Yeah, because I had
100%.
as the main tank, I had to bully everyone out of their bags. Like, there's no chance I'm gonna tank it.
You would.
And I did the first day. I was like, by the way, I'm taking this bag. Not on my alt tank, but on my main tank. Like, there's no chance I'm tanking one of these dungeons and I'm not getting the bag at the end.
Yeah, and I think that's the case for any guild tank, right? And it just kind of felt sad for other people. This way, everybody gets it. It's just kind of nice.
Yeah, it was going to cause way more conflict than it was going to help, right? Like,
I think a lot of people probably would have stopped doing them even sooner. But the fact that everyone in the group gets 5 from doing it, that's actually kind of worth doing. Like, especially because the runed orbs are only 18 or something. So after 3 days, you're getting a runed orb on each of your characters almost. So that's pretty good. That seems worth doing. But yeah, they just, I don't know, like a lot of the affixes, they end up just taking a little too long. Halls of Stone takes 20 minutes or something, even with skips. Like it just takes a while to kill that stuff with that much health. And then I do it on 2 characters, which again is my fault, I guess. But I like them a lot, and I'm glad that Blizzard put them out for sure. But I just think that in a month from now, when there's a daily that shows up for Halls, for one of these, I'm just going to be like, I don't feel like doing it anymore.
Yeah.
When we do Halls of Stone, I'm going to try today. I was going to try it yesterday, but thought about it at the very end of the run. But I'm going to try, since the damage ramps up and I'm going to try going revenge spec and just going in there and blasting a few packs at a time and see
that could
if
be
that
fun.
improves time. So yeah, I'm gonna give some different things a try. But I've been enjoying them, but we'll see how long I enjoy them. But it just feels like 5 badges a pop. It's hard to say no to them. It's really good at the moment. We'll have badges crawling out of our ears, in a few weeks. But for right now, it definitely seems like a worthwhile thing. And for alts, it's got to be really good. Oh, anything else? Oh, we've been doing the dailies up in Ice Crown for the tournament.
The tournament.
Yeah, that's been interesting.
Tournament been?
And I was asking Bob about this. I was like, what do we get? And he was like, mounts and pets. And I was like, oh, so I don't need to do this? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, well, I told her I don't know. There might be something when TOC comes out that it's worthwhile.
Yeah. In my head, I mean, I don't remember for sure, or I didn't read anything to state if there's anything for TOC because I didn't raid at this time back then. The only thing from the dailies I got back in actual Wrath was the mounts, and then once you finish there's a rep out there, right? I think once you finish getting that or something, you can start doing like gnome ones to get Gnomeron rep and stuff. So you can like finish out your normal faction reps and get those mounts too. But I certainly don't remember getting anything like for raid back then doing those dailies. But
I think there's like
I didn't do TOC.
There's like 3 mounts per vendor or something. It's like a lot of mounts.
It's a lot of mounts. It's definitely like they implemented it, and like, that was how you like climb to 100 mounts. So it's like doing all this nonsense.
Yeah, but I'm at 82 at the moment. Like, and if I got the PvP mounts, it would put me up almost to like in like 90s somewhere, I think. But
so they're pretty easy. But I will say, Questy does not have a great look on these, and there's one where you're supposed to like you go to another place, but then you're supposed to get on the horse there and kill the mobs that way. Well, Bob and I didn't read that part of the quest, so we just went over there and we're trying to kill these mobs, and this horse guy is there. He's this elite, and he just keeps like running away from you, and then he's following us around as we're trying to kill these mobs, and we can't lose aggro off of him. And finally, I was like, I'm reading the quest, and we had to get on a horse, and then it was really easy.
It was hilarious. They had made it like hard if you weren't on the mount, and he was doing the mounted stuff, so he was running away from us and then coming back in and charging and running away from us. It was like, awesome. Okay, we're doing something wrong here, guys.
You gotta joust them.
Yeah, and then there's one where you kiss frogs. There's a macro that makes it easier. You have to take anti-wart lip balm. Oh, I did get Tony the Tiger. I got the Swift Zulaman Tiger.
So did Mira this morning.
Oh wow! Well,
and Guild's getting the ZG mounts everywhere.
And
there we go.
And Butter's got that and the Karazhan mount in the same day the other day too, right?
I think,
or maybe
maybe
the group
Stoof got the Raptor. I think Stoof got the Raptor, and then Stoof and Butters went to Kara and got Butters the Kara mount.
Okay.
Stoof is confirming. Yeah, that's what happened.
Okay.
So pretty wild. Our guild mounts are. We just need an Alarin guild. That's the last piece to make our guild look awesome.
Yeah, it's been. I decided to give it to my warrior because my warrior has like no mounts at all. Like I'm still riding the mount you get from hardcore. Culling of Stratholme, and I feel like a dork with no proto Drake, and so I was like, I'm just gonna give it to the warrior so he can have a cool mount, and I have the chopper on the rogue, so yeah, I got that. I can't think of anything else. Me and Classic Go 2-manned AQ20 like nerds.
Nice.
Yeah, we need to do AQ40, but I need like a group of like 6 or 7 or something, because twins is still going to be kind of a pain, but that's the last one I have to do for that achievement. Yeah,
I did leatherworking.
Did you? I
got max leatherworking on my other paladin because it's not that big of a loss. It's actually better than enchanting as far as raid wise, and my main paladin has enchanting. So, yeah, I did leatherworking. Definitely worthwhile if you're like new to the game. If anyone does that anymore, be a skinner. You would make so much money off of people like me. It's like 50 silver a skin for like level 20 stuff. Like, that's insanity. If you're just like leveling and killing stuff and skinning, you're going to be rich by the time you're max level. It's insane.
Yeah, definitely like have a mount or have a mod that tells you like auction house prices, because doing all these achievements in the old world, I'm like, oh, this does sell. I saw all this old weird stuff. Yeah. Because everybody's trying to do achievements or trying to get rep, and all this stuff goes into it. Like all the AQ20 stuff sold. I was like, okay, these people still want the Scarab stuff. Okay. But yeah, so it might be different on smaller servers, but Benediction, everything sells. Mel, you got anything else, Mel?
No, between doing the daily heroic on both my characters and then the dailies on one, that's pretty much all.
Yeah.
And raiding.
Actually,
4 nights a week.
Lucky though, because we split up the 2 tanks and like we just have no problem getting groups together. So
yeah,
works out pretty good. All right, well, let's move into
Bobby, we need to have a talk about this World of Warcraft Classic. Do I look like I know what a WoW token is?
All right, so this week's discussion is all about Ulduar and progression. And so far, this crew has completed every boss on normal. We've completed 10-man on normal and did one hard mode, I believe. Oh, no, 2 hard modes. We did like the first hard mode of Flame Leviathan, right?
I don't think we did we?
We left like two towers up or something?
No, we didn't do it.
Didn't? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, so and then we've also done one night raiding as the weekday raid. So Yip, you want to start us out?
Yeah, so we collectively we've done a raid and a half. That is our, and then 10 mans. Yeah, so the raid is definitely hard. I think that's a good thing to start out on, is that it is kind of insane to step up from Nax to Ulduar. Like, we knew it would be coming, and we've gone through hard content before, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But I imagine if there were guilds that were like struggling to get through Nax or something like that, and they're like all new to Classic or something, they're not prepared.
It's gonna be tough
for what's coming. That's for sure. As far as prep goes, we didn't do too much crazy stuff. We used Cosmophiles. He has like a spreadsheet that he puts out every tier that has a guide to like each boss, but it also has raid assignments on there, which is nice. So our raid leader Razorscale put together like who's going in what vehicle, like who's going to be on what side of the boss for like all the different bosses. So that was super useful. And we've always found that to be like the most useful thing for any boss that requires like people to stand in certain quadrants, or for people to spread out. It's always just been easier to have a map of the room and just be like, stand there.
Right.
You should stand there. That was really only that useful for something like Thorim. Like, I don't think there's that many fights this time around that require like maps or anything like that, but assignments are good just to like know who's tanking what and that sort of thing. So that was really all the prep that we had going in, just learning the fights amongst the officers and then putting that sheet together. So
10-man was good prep. Let's be honest.
Yeah. So the first thing that we did, all 3 of us were in that one. Is do a 10-man as soon as it launched. So I was pretty nervous about going straight into 25-man because I want to see mechanics myself. Guides are just like not that good. It's like, oh, he does a flame blast that does 25 to 30k damage spread throughout the raid or something. It's like, what does that mean? That doesn't mean anything.
Right.
I want to see like percentage health bars drop in a fight and see what's up.
Yeah.
So we did 10-man, and we didn't run into too many problems. Like, we had to like learn what things did what. The only major problem that we had, I would say, was going into Vezax. Vezax, when we had to like go wrap it up later because we didn't finish it the first time we went through. Vezax is a pretty hard fight. I think that people who aren't geared and then people who don't like quite have their strategy down for it are gonna struggle a lot on that 10-man fight. Normally 10-mans like don't have a lot of health, but that fight's pretty long and challenging.
Okay, as the healer, so we didn't like in the 10-man, we did the strat where the healers stand out with the casters, right? And I'm not kidding you. I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off because like I'm trying to heal Yip. I'm trying to run away from the little thing that explodes on you, right? And then I'm trying to like run to the green spot where I can get mana, which is always too far from Yip to heal Yip. And then trying to heal thank God I was a discipline priest and mainly I do bubbles and pair of mendays, which are instant casts, because I don't think I stopped moving like the entire time in 10-man. It was nuts.
Yeah, it's definitely easier to have them all stacked. The problem is when we went in for a second 10-man, when we had the healers stack there, like every spike that he launches was coming into melee and like not recognizing the range being out as the range. So we ended up still in 10-man having our healers out, but I think they were a little bit better about like, we knew like more what to do as far as placement of the mana and making sure the healers were able to get their mana and stuff like that. But We won't talk 10-man too much, but 10-man wasn't too bad. I think hard modes in there might pose some challenge, but going through normal 10-man, not too bad. For 25-man, we went in, and I was actually nervous about Flame Leviathan, not after the 10-man, but like before everything, because I was like, oh, we all have to get into vehicles, like it's gonna, and like you read the fight and it sounds like kind of hard. You're like, oh, people are gonna have to hook stuff and then like hook pyrite or something.
Disaster.
Hard mode is a different story. You're launching people up onto him. Like, it's a definite different story. We did it.
That's what I thought we were going to have to do for the normal mode. But all you have to do for Flame Leviathan is whoever is tanking it, run away from him. And then everyone else just hits them. And you keep up the 10 stacks of pyrite or whatever you're picking up, the bomb stuff. The demos are really important. So fill out your demos, fill out your sieges next. And then put whoever else is left in choppers. And then you kind of, like, honestly, you just kind of go out there and hit stuff and it ends up dying. It has such little health. Yeah, it has such little health. It only flame vents like twice. And then you know, any siege engine can interrupt that. And we definitely had a couple of vehicles die in both raids. Like right toward the end, a vehicle like maybe didn't escape and got destroyed by Flame Leviathan. So if you're not kiting, I can understand how maybe things go wrong, but whoever he is fixated on just doesn't have to do anything but run away, and the fight ends up being like kind of a joke. I mean, I only have been in the siege engine though. Any other perspectives on Flame Leviathan?
It's pretty interesting because I didn't realize this going in, but back in the day, I never did normal mode because I was like, well, wait. We have to go down these two different side things and kill like a smaller boss first. And like, no, that's on hard modes. And I was like, oh, well, then I've never done easy mode. Okay. So I guess like back in the day, we just did hard mode right off the bat. I don't know which version of it because there's a couple of different versions. We didn't know
there was an easy mode, right? We were like, yeah, we got to go this way. There's a boss, right?
Well, the raid lead probably knew, but I mean, I was just, you know, dumb DPS, point me this way, tell me what I need to do. Like, you know, like I wasn't paying attention as much of a high level as I do now, as like thinking about it in like tank perspective. So yeah, I just never knew. But the demos are great. The demos can pound out a ton of damage. You have to make sure that your passenger knows to keep you full on pyrite. Oh, hey, thank you for the 5 gifted subs, Jittery Wolf. Thank you so much. So the biggest thing is pyrite stacks, okay? And you don't want to let the stacks fall off. Now, this doesn't really matter for easy mode, but like hard modes, it's going to matter a lot. So if you're the passenger during the boss fight, you know, you need to be keeping that pyrite filled. And if you're the one shooting it, you need to be paying attention to your stack timer and maybe not shooting, you know, maybe not spamming it, you know, depending on how much your passenger's been able to collect, because the speed in which you shoot it is way less important than the stacks staying up. So the stacks is the biggest thing, and you can do some unbelievable damage with pyrite. That's basically the demos. Yeah, that's basically all you do there.
So Harscar said that not activating the towers is a new thing to Classic, and that in Wrath you had to kill the towers to knock it out of hard mode.
So then maybe we did do easy mode then. Okay, thank you, Harscar.
Well, there you go. Point being though is definitely going to be a hard mode we try next week, I think. I mean, I don't want to speak for Harscar and everybody, but I would assume we would at least give that a shot.
Try like one tower up or something.
I mean, it felt very easy. This week. So
I will say, when you're in, I think it's a siege engine, when you're like the gunner in the siege engine, it's definitely like, I don't know, there's something about the way like the camera moves where it's very disorienting at times. And then when the siege engine does its like little charge thing and then like gets in and your like camera's just like going all around trying to shoot down the little pyrite things, is nutty.
Yeah, the whole thing's a little nutty. Like, we have somebody who disconnects like every time we get there. Like, sometimes the siege engines look like they're just teleporting around. Like, it's pretty wild. Not sure there's anything you can do about that. But if you're just doing the normal mode, it kind of seems like whatever. Like, it didn't really matter what people's roles were, and everything's easy enough that you'll get it down.
Yeah, if you have just one person using Pyrite, it melts. Yeah.
I definitely feel bad about the guy who was on Flame Leviathan for 3 hours in that voicemail.
Yeah.
But my guess is that the kiting was the issue, because if a siege engine dies, I think you like kill everyone in it or whatever, and then like I could maybe that like it's a stacking thing, but yeah, you just have everyone run away if they're targeting, and then if they're not targeting you, you can go ham on the boss. Like, you can be like inside the boss. It doesn't matter because he doesn't like do any kind of turn or hit that will hurt you.
And if you're keeping your distance in the demo, you can definitely go in reverse while still shooting the boss. Like, if he gets close, you need to turn and run, but you definitely keep the damage up. That'll matter in hard mode, at least from what Ruggs told us when he was last on.
This is a siege engine perspective where your damage is like closer up anyway. Like, you wouldn't want to be close to do your damage.
Yeah. You would want to turn and run if you were the siege engine.
Cool. Well, that's Flame Leviathan. Not bad at all. I do want to talk about Ignis though, because I think Ignis is like a sleeper hard boss. Like, that boss is actually not that easy. At first, it's very long. It's like, it feels like he has so much health. Maybe I'm wrong. I have our kill times up. Yeah, it's 3 minutes, 35 seconds in our kill time for our weekday raid, which is longer than most of the fights in there, that for sure. But it just feels like it goes on forever. We did the strategy where the tank like moves in a square of 4 and just places down the the flames on the ground, and then we just had an off tank turn them into molten goo, and then you blow them up in the water. So issues that we ran into, those molten things are hard to deal with. Those constructs that come out, I didn't believe our off tank in our weekday raid. I feel
fabulous.
Bad.
He's been on the show before.
I had no doubt that they were doing a aggro reset, but like, they were going everywhere and like hitting people and killing people and like,
dude.
Making it. But when Mel and I were both doing it, and they definitely continually lose aggro like endlessly.
It's
insane. Absurd. I think it was actually a detriment that we were both doing it, because we would like taunt off each other, and like it was very confusing having two people do it. Do it. If you have
and we were trying to root them too. And then it's like they would get rooted at the other side, so then you'd have to like run into the fire, hit them, and by the time you hit them, then they like, I don't know.
I wasn't a huge fan of the rooting. It definitely made things more complicated between like who's picking it up.
I think we should root them if there's more than like 1 or 2 out, right? Like, that would make sense to me to keep them off of other people. But
I think if your DPS is good or at 50% health, you're probably good to just like kite them around. In our second 10-man, Mira, we didn't do the mechanic at all and just ran around with them and would roots them himself because he's a bear. So we just didn't do that mechanic, and that actually seemed easier than anything else. Because you and I, when we were pulling, the flames do a lot of damage. So for the
they
tank,
do.
like,
people kept saying they don't do any damage, and I'm like, yes,
they destroy you. Yeah. It's insane. You definitely, the roots is definitely the best option, but it just gets hectic, and I think having 2 off tanks was a bad idea. Well, I mean, that's just what we have because we're both just geared to tanks. But it was definitely hectic at times and weirdly hard. Pulling him around isn't too bad, but it's also awkward because like after he flame jets, he like runs away. He doesn't like run away. When he does the thing where he puts them in their pot, he runs away and like readjusts where he is. Yeah. So like if you pull him too far, he like sprints away from you, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, it was. So I had to take it in the weekend raid, and I'm just like, okay. And like I was like trying to face it away from the raid, but like, do you face it completely away from the raid, or like at a 45-degree angle away from the raid? Like, I was having issues there, and then sometimes I don't know if my graphics were messing up, but sometimes he wouldn't drop the flame poop, like his little like
I don't know what was going on. They were not showing up for me.
Yeah, when I was trying to find
half of them weren't showing up for me.
The golems to take them into the flame stuff, I was like, there's no flame stuff? Or like...
Yeah, exactly. So this was my guess during... I was told I might have been wrong and it could have been a graphical error. But if he flame jets into the water, it won't spawn. So my guess was that maybe some of the flames were hitting the water and not spawning for that reason. But like there were definitely times
people
where
do the one strat where the tank moves back
they do
and
the
forth.
one. Yeah. But we tried that on 10 man at first, and we just didn't have the positioning right, I think. So we just didn't do it that way. But I think with the right positioning, the water strat would probably be good. But it was definitely doing the four corner. Like it's not easy. Like I would not have wanted to be in a guild that struggles more than us and do that fight because it's hard.
Yeah, it was
and
intense.
long.
For the main tank, for lots of stuff in Ulduar, there's a lot more backpedaling for the main tank than I was having to do at Nax. And like backpedaling is a bitch for me. Like I was trying to figure out like a thing to like switch my keybind. I thought about maybe spacebar and putting jump someplace else, but I decided to buy a foot pedal for that. So I'm going to use that for backpedaling in the future.
Extreme backpedaling.
I think
his positioning is super wonky, that's for sure. And there are definitely times where backpedaling is useful for positioning. Because some of these bosses, they do a thing where like if they think they're like not in front of you when you're pulling them, they do like this giant readjustment of their body, and you're like,
oh no.
It's a nightmare on mobs that have like conals. They'll just like move super weird.
And I remember in Ulduar back in the day being like, tanks, why can't you keep it in one fucking spot? Like, what is your problem? And boy, I was an idiot because I just didn't realize how tough it was.
like there are times where you'll just be standing still and then he'll decide to move. You're like, okay, cool, this is great. But it's not too bad. There's not too many things going on, but it was a lot of raid damage. That's for one. And the constructs dropping aggro consistently, like it's very easy to let a healer just like get killed. So definitely things to watch out for. It is an optional boss though, I think, right? Like you can just move past him.
I believe him and Razorscale.
Yeah, so so if you are having issues, I would definitely say like there are easier bosses later. I think he's on the end of the harder normal bosses.
The trash is no joke too.
The trash does a lot of damage and has mechanics that you should know about going into it.
Right.
You can kind of figure it out as you go, but the trash is like I'm constantly popping defensive cooldowns on trash. Especially on pull. If you do an accidental pull and like you pull 2 packs, it's very easy to wipe. We probably wipe more on trash in all of the raids than on bosses. So it definitely is pretty wild if you're not paying attention, or if you're a guild that can end up having like lackadaisical positioning where like ranged are pulling packs in the front and stuff goes crazy. The mobs are hard in there, and you should know what they do going in if you can. There's like MCs before Vezax. There's mechanics where you need to pull things, like pull mobs and keep them apart from each other. So having that basic information is useful.
Yeah.
Razorscale, is that his name?
Yes.
Razorscale, that sounds right. Well, I'm going to give you 2 perspectives here, because on 10, well, I guess 3. On 10 man, I pulled it by accident because I didn't know that I was pulling it. I was like, oh, I'm going to talk to this guy. And then here comes Razorscale. So that went fine, though. We killed him in that pull. After that, in our 25 man, basically the same. It took us longer to get him into the air. It took us 2 phases because I think we did hero the down phase, which is interesting. We heroed when he came down the first time, and it wasn't enough to get him to 50%, and he went back up. Yeah. Then when he came down again, we got him down like very quickly to 50% because he was already at like 55. And then we killed him. He's very easy. We didn't even have to tank swap, I don't think. You have to pull him a little bit. He puts like fire on his butt for melee, which is kind of annoying, so you can pull him around the circle. But yeah, super clean, super easy. Kind of, it's a loot pinata. Great. So we go in on the weekend raid. Same thing. Feels like the same timing. We had to do him twice. We had to get him down twice. And then he was free. And then he turned big and red and murdered Bob. And then I was like, I saw him get big and red, so I didn't quite know like what was going on.
Right. He murdered Bob, and they were like, Mel taunt. And I was like, so I taunted, obliterated.
Yeah, so I was like, that's confusing. So I divine protection and taunted, and then I got obliterated. So I was like, that makes no sense. Like, what just happened? And then we realized we hit the berserker timer. The whole time for the whole fight, I think, is 6 minutes total.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe
from when you initiated
it. Yeah, from when you initiate the like trash.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we didn't realize it at the time. Yeah, I'm looking right now. Our Razorscale kill in our main raid was 5 minutes 45 seconds. So we were 15 seconds off the timer, which is like absurd to me. Like we are a like decent guild with like decent DPS, and we didn't know that we were 15 seconds away from like not making the timer. But it is a lot tighter than you would have imagined. Like we were not prepared for that tight of a DPS race. But I do want to say in our weekend raid, we were down multiple DPS. So our weekend raid doesn't have the same average DPS as our weekday raid. We were still able to get it down.
Yeah, we were at 22 when we dropped Razorscale, right? We were missing 3 DPS.
Yeah, we were at 22 and we have 3.
And we had 3 tanks, yeah.
So it's like, okay, yeah, we're at, we're down quite a few DPS.
Yeah.
But that's still the hardest berserk timer we've had like in the game so far, for sure. So that was really interesting to see. I think ideally you just don't have 2 phase and you try to 1 phase them, but like we couldn't even do that with hero in our main raid. So might just take some gearing, but I think with 25 people you can do it. Some tips to help. Obviously, just save all your defensive cooldowns for when the rage is going to pop off. If you can bubble and taunt is another thing. Mel, were you able to do that? It looked like you did do it, but I wasn't actually sure on our kill.
Wait, bubble, like
the invincibility bubble. You might not have.
Oh no, I think I put on divine shield and taunted.
It definitely worked. He didn't die quite quick enough.
Hey, how many?
I wasn't saying we were down 2 in main raid. That might have been true at that point. I'm not sure.
We might have been waiting for people to log in.
Yeah, we actually might have been waiting for people in main raid to log in or something like that. But either way, it's not too bad. But I think if you have a paladin tank, you definitely want to have force set of. Actually, I mean, you probably don't need force set for how long taunt lasts. Now that I think about it, but righteous defense and reckoning, while you bubble, you'll be able to hold him the whole time that your bubble's up and not die, and that gives you like an extra few seconds to kill it. And then we were able to kind of like kite it around a little bit to make sure we finish the kill. So
it wasn't a clean kill.
Yeah, but just pay attention to the timer and like get ready to pop a ton of defensives and make it work. But I think most guilds should be able to do it. But I was definitely surprised by how short that timer was. After Razorscale, there's XT002 Deconstructor. I actually don't have a strong grasp of how he works on hard mode. On normal, though, he was pretty simple. You stack your entire melee on his left foot. If you end up with the light debuff, which is called like Searing Light, I think, you just go right. Light is right. And then if you end up with Gravity Bomb, which we call like the dark debuff, you go left. So light is right. Everyone else goes left. You have like 1 or 2 DPS assigned to killing the bots that come in. Not the pummelers, but like the actual scrap bots, which heal the bots if they come in. And there's bomb bots, I think, too, that you have to kill. But other than that, you just kind of DPS him. He does this giant raid damage called like, it's not pummel. It's something like that. He like pounds on the ground.
I think it's ground pound. Ground pound or ground pummel.
Ground
so he does that, and it's very similar to Void Reaver in Tempest Keep. But it's a ton of AoE damage, but I think he does it at certain HP amounts, or maybe after a certain time. I don't know exactly when he does it, but if he takes a lot of damage when you deal damage to his heart that comes out. So what happened was after the first pummel went down, we took a lot of damage. We did so much damage to the heart that he never pummeled again. He would just spit his heart back out again after a couple of seconds. So it becomes like the easiest fight ever.
Yeah, even in the weekday.
Is it the trample? Yeah,
trample sounds right.
Trample.
Even in the weekend raid, the heart just kept popping out. Like he never had time to do the pummel.
Yeah, even in the weekend raid where we're down DPS and like we're not pumping in there. Some people are for sure, but our average DPS is not like incredible. We don't have the right raid comp, all these things. It became not an issue. So have a raid wide divine sack available for the first one, and then just, you know, if you have another one, just save it for later. But it's really not too big of a deal. But hard mode might be a different case. I'm not super familiar with how hard mode goes.
One thing I wanted to ask, so light is right, dark is left. But are you moving, how far away are you wanting to move from the raid when you get those two debuffs? Because I never got it on my rogue, and on my warrior, I didn't, have to worry about it.
So for melee, all you have to do is move to the right foot. You can still attack him in melee and be on the right foot. My heart says something like 15 yards. It's pretty short, but we did have in the second raid someone blow us up with the gravity bomb. So I would say get like a decent ways away, but it's definitely like a blink away. It is not super duper far that you have to be.
And that's the dark, right?
That's the dark one, because you're stacked with everybody needing to get out, and you can just go to the right foot for the light one if you're melee, and then if you're ranged, you can just go out to the right, and you're fine. But give yourself some room. There's like no other really big mechanics. Like I know obviously you want a DPS with the gravity well on if you're melee, but just don't, and it'll go fine. After him is Iron Assembly, right? Or whatever, the Iron Council.
Yep, Iron Council.
And they're not bad. That's also a long fight. A lot of these fights are like weirdly long. It took us 4.5 minutes to kill them. It depends on the order that you kill them, like how the fight actually goes, because they gain new abilities depending on the order. The easy mode order is smallest to largest. So largest to smallest. So you kill the big steel breaker guy. He's tough, but honestly, he was not that tough. He does this fusion punch, which is supposed to do like a ton of damage. I think if you're on hard mode and where you kill him last, it becomes a much bigger issue. But that first one doesn't really one-shot anybody. We had Mira tanking it in the 10-man, and he just like ate it and did like nothing to him on a druid. We had Mel there for divine sack and divine protection. I don't think it was even needed, honestly, but it did. I mean, even with divine protection up, it would take her down to like 60% health, but there's no other damage coming out on the tank. So, you take the damage, you get healed. It's not that big of a deal. You want to have interrupts on the little guy the whole time, but even if you don't, it's just not that much damage. He pumps out like chain lightnings and stuff, and it just didn't really seem to matter if they went off or if he got interrupted.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know what you did in the main raid, but I was taking the small guy and the medium guy in the weekend raid, and I was able with AoE stun and with kick, or with shield slam, or what's it called? Shield bash. Yeah. I was able to stop almost every cast from him. So it wasn't a big deal. I don't know if Paladin might be a little different because you don't really have
Paladin
an
has
interrupt.
We have one. Hammer of Justice will do a PvE interrupt. But other than that, there isn't that much. So I think we had either a shaman or a mage have decently ranged interrupts. That's like your best next option, but a lot of the times they would sit in runes and we would just like eat some chain lightnings. It's honestly, most of his abilities you can just heal through. It's really not a big deal. The only really scary one I think is Whirlwind, where he shoots out some stuff. If you leave that up for like the whole duration, I think maybe it could cause some like raid damage. That seems like a lot, but we let it sit for like half its duration, and like maybe I saw a low person, but it's not that much damage. You basically just want to move them to the runes, let people have like the empowered rune, and then you kill them. It takes a while, but the damage isn't insane. People were like ending it with like full mana. It just like wasn't that crazy. It's a long fight.
That was a bummer for DPS. For melee DPS, because you're just never getting in the little pumper thing.
It's possible. It's just so hard. Like in an ideal world, like in Weekend Raid, Mel was pulling him like too far for melee, but it's so much better than having him accidentally in it and kill you. If the mob is in the blue thing, then you take a ton more damage. So like it's definitely better to just not let the melee have that damage for now.
Does it help melee too? I didn't realize. I was just trying to get it in range of casters.
I think it does, but it's pretty like you have to be pretty close because you can't move a boss just a little bit. So it's like hard to get it like right where a melee can do it. Right. But I think just the casters are the most important part because like you don't want to be pulling them like all over the place, and normally you don't have to move them that much because casters can get next to the go to the next blue one. And then the only other scary thing, if you're like a dad guild and your reaction time is like 1,000 milliseconds, the death and like the green rune that the second guy puts down, the medium size
that's
guy,
quick.
You have to get out. That thing hurts very fast. It ticks like immediately and does like half your health. So I would say like that's the only like scary thing. We never had anyone die to it, but it definitely like hits the entire raid and like hits pretty hard. So like that
as a rogue, Feint is pretty awesome throughout a lot of Ulduar, dude. A lot of Ulduar. You're able to feint and like take half of the AoE damage, like with timed right. You can ignore a lot of those mechanics other melee have to adhere to. It's pretty cool.
That's pretty sick. But yeah, I mean, the Iron Council is not too bad. I think once we do it hard mode, you'll probably hear some bigger complaints from us about how difficult it is, because it does seem a lot harder in the reverse mode. But the normal mode, not too bad. The big thing is if your guild's struggling, probably getting kicks on the little guy, having a mage over there, stationary is good. Honestly, you lose DPS, but you could put like a rogue over there if your tank is struggling to like get the kicks or your range are struggling. You lose 100% of that DPS because when one of the people dies, the other two heal back up to full. But I can't see a scenario where you wipe otherwise.
But at the same time, I mean, your caster DPS are destroying on that fight. I think I ended our fight as the #1 melee DPS in that fight. But the casters were like double mine, or maybe I'm thinking of General or something. Yeah, I'm thinking of General. I ended as the #1 melee DPS, and I still had to kick, but I mean, the casters were like double my damage. So in fights like that, like, having the rogue kick, I don't think it's probably not going to count towards your parse killing, like doing any damage to them until one of the guys is dead. Like,
correct.
Your damage is only going to count on the people that die.
Exactly. It's already for like Warcraft logs. They exclude any damage on any of them that reheal. So no point in doing anything other than single targeting during the fight. But again, not too bad. It's long. Like I kind of hate long fights. Once you get past 4 minutes, like I'm starting like, what's going on? Where am I?
Are we still here?
Yeah, like it just feels. I'm really used to like the 90-second Nax, like.
Right. It's definitely different.
Yeah, it leads to. I've had major anxiety about tanking, and like tanking last night. The longer the fight, the more you're like, oh god, okay. Just like any mistake could be your fault, and you're just like, oh, I don't want to screw this up. Yeah.
I think that's the problem with Ignis is because like you're tanking him in those 4 quadrants. So you're moving the boss more than like any fight so far in the game. And then it's also really long. So you're just like, all right, move it. Why is he at 90% still? Like,
that's deflating, right? When you're tanking and like you feel like it's been forever, and then you look at the health bar and you're like, what the hell? Like, what is happening?
Yeah, you definitely got to get used to it. And again, like we're also, another thing to point out, I know I'm saying that like things are taking a while and I'm giving you kill times. We're not some kind of crazy progression guild. Our parses don't look the same on farm as they do on progression. So like we're definitely not doing like our maximum damage and like, oh, Razorscale is so tough. We're like a really strong guild and we only do X or Y. A lot of the times when we're like fumbling around, those parses end up not looking that good. So if we had like multiple Razorscale attempts, maybe we'd be much farther away from that Berserker timer.
Oh yeah,
well, I mean, like throw that.
I screwed up a million times too on my rotations and stuff. I was just like, oh my gosh.
Well, and I think a lot of people are worried.
Do.
Yeah, they're worried about positioning and like a bunch of the other things because this is our first time in there, right? We didn't go to PTR. We didn't, we watched videos, but that doesn't, it only does so much. So, us getting in there and fumbling around, I think was the most helpful. We'll probably have, even next week, I think we'll have a lot more time.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Like people don't know how to optimize like how much damage you're doing, and that is acceptable for progress. That's what you kind of expect. So next is Kologarn, I don't know. He's like the big dude whose arms you punch.
Yes.
He's like, I feel like he's easy. We struggled on the weekend for some reason. I'm trying to recall what was tough on the weekend. People were dying to, I think, Stone Nova, which is, I think, an AoE that you can sit in and just take a bunch of damage. I think that was actually a majority of the raid damage I was getting overwhelming. His right arm, oh God.
I know.
For some reason, he's like facing the other way. So his right arm is on the left and his left arm is on the right, which is just like, okay, great.
See, that just seems normal for me. If somebody says his like right arm, I just look at him, my mind turns me and I see like that's his right arm.
I think that comes from like melee though. I feel like
melee definitely.
Yeah, because it's like you just know which you always check or like KT.
Yeah, just like KT back in the day, like I was like, why don't we just say right arm and left arm, and if KT gets moved, you're still on the right arm. But for some people, it definitely is a little tougher for them.
Well, I mean, you have to imagine for certain people, they'd have to bring up their fingers and see which one's left and right on their fingers. And then both hands are off the keyboard. It's a nightmare. But yeah, it doesn't even matter if you attack the wrong one. For the most part, it's not that big of a deal. But killing them down fast is good because there's extra mechanics that the arms do. One like grabs one, some people, and one just like does an AoE. I don't think you have to kill the AoE one, but he doesn't take the damage from that arm until the arm dies, though. I think he takes like 15% damage on the torso if an arm dies. So if you got the right arm to like 20% health, you may as well kill it and get that damage onto the main boss. So it's really not that bad. A tank has to pick up adds and pull them out of melee, which not only did none of us realize that evening for the weekend raid, I'm pretty sure Harsker told us to hold them in on the melee. And then like we all blew up a little bit, which is fine. It's just funny. So I think we did wipe once on that on the weekend, but on the weekday, we just plowed through.
Dude, I've got to figure out what I'm doing wrong. I've really racked my brain because like back in the day, I used to kill on this fight. I mean, absolutely top the charts as a combat rogue. And like, I'm like the worst DPS in both our 10-man and our 25-man. And I'm like, something is really wrong. And when Harskar in the weekend raid said that there's a sweet spot where you can cleave them both, I was like, dude, I always attacked the boss towards the arm we wanted to kill, and that's what cleaved. For some reason, like it's a weird thing, but if you're on just the like left side of it's his right side of his torso, but the left side of the room, you can hit the arm with him. I remember this now well. I was standing right at the arm, and like I wasn't even in range to hit the arm a lot of times, and that was what was going on. Like I wasn't even hitting the arm because if you're standing at, like, you have to think of it, it's his actual arm that you're actually wanting to be close to, his bicep, not his hand. His hand is what you click on to actually click on that arm, but that's not where the hitbox is. So that's why I was going in and out of range, because when he moves his arm, the hitbox moves in, you'll get a hit off, but then it goes back out. You're no longer in range. And that's the problem that I was running into. So going forward, I think I'll have it better, but you're really kind of wanting to tuck yourself into his armpit if you're cleaving. So just letting everybody know that.
Definitely good advice there. And I would just look at your numbers, like see if you are cleaving and then readjust it's definitely worth it. Like the amount of damage you can do cleaving versus not is.
See, what's nice for combat rogue is your cleave actually makes an extra audio sound. So it goes, which is really nice because like warrior, it doesn't give you a notification that you're hitting multiple things with whirlwind or with cleave, so it's pretty cool that Bladestorm does that. It kind of helps you as a combat rogue do that.
Well, sick. After you kill our turned around guy, there is this name Auriaya. Ayaya.
Okay, well, Sarth calls it something that drives Mel nuts. Auriaya. It's something like that. Drove her nuts while she was listening to his beef bar first.
She's the one that she pats around. Here's a little tip. Here's some advice. Even if she's on a good pat, just kill the left pack and the right pack so that if you wipe, you can just pull her on either side, because we wiped in every raid, I believe. And it just was like we had to wait for her to pat back, and you have to kill all the trash anyway.
You can also have a hunter or a rogue resetter off the beaten path if you're just trying to get around her quick or something, or one to set her back to like her starting spot, which I didn't suggest it in our raid last night because I don't know where she actually spawns. So I just didn't think it was worthwhile information. I figured I'd tell Jack later on, so he could have that in his toolkit.
The only thing hard about her is the pull, and I still don't know what to do. Clearly, we have no idea what to do.
What we did in the weekend raid is Pain supped me. I last standed and shield walled. And that's how I made the pull. So
well, they still jumped through like the side of the wall and hit 2 melee first. Like, it's so insane. Yeah. These tigers, when you pull them, they just pounce. And the Fab is saying he doesn't know because in the weekday way it went perfectly. It did go perfectly the second time. The first time it murdered everybody, and then the second time it totally went fine. But I don't know if it's the way we stack. I don't know if it's like, I don't know what it is. But they always seem to kill a couple of people right off the bat, and I think we ended up having some threat issues, which I did not understand at the time. Which then like they'll just start pouncing everyone crazy, I guess. But
I think too, if people aren't stacked, like if people aren't stacked, I think they pounce no matter what. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell because it happens in 3 seconds. You have 6 people dead, and you're like, great. Cool. Luckily, we have enough battle reses in the weekend raid. It wasn't a big deal. But for her, she's honestly super duper easy once you're past that pull. You kill the ads, and then she does a terrifying scream, which you need to interrupt something after that. So having somebody with either a human to like get out of the fear, use your shamans with tremor totem.
Warriors actually, come in very handy.
Always get out.
Yeah, you can always get out with what the heck is it? Your
battle rage or something?
Yeah, the Berserker one that
rage
gives you more. I forget. We used it a lot back in the day.
Yeah, use your freaking warrior ability. You're a warrior. You know about it. Whoever's listening, you know what ability we mean.
Is there any warriors out there?
There's quite a few.
Yeah, all of our raids have multiple DPS warriors, so there's definitely a couple. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. And then there's a Screech, which we were having melee sit in the back and then ranged in front. The way that I had seen it done, which I kind of like, is just everyone's in the back, and then the tank just turns it for the Screech as well, too, to hit everybody. But the Screech basically like equals out to whoever gets hit. So if one person gets hit, you'll insta-die. And if the whole raid gets hit, everyone takes like a tiny fraction of damage. So that's great. And then a defender spawns. You just have to kill it, and it drops a void zone. Every time you kill it, it like comes back 30 seconds later, and it's weaker. So kill it once or twice, drop a couple void zones, and then you're pretty much good to go and kill the boss. But things aren't that hectic after the pull that you can kind of talk about it during it. We were like, should we kill this one? Yes, no. Do we want to kill it? Like, there's plenty of time to talk about whatever.
Could you off tank it and just only have one come out? Or do they keep coming out?
I think only one comes out, but I think it like drops threat and pounces on other people still. So it's kind of annoying to have it up, but you can totally off tank it. It's just like you may as well kill it once and then it'll be weaker to off tank it next. Because it's like quite a bit weaker. We killed it twice and I think it was 300% less damage.
Wow.
Which is like pretty significant, but there's not much going on. You may as well. You can do whatever. Your guild will figure it out. If you have a good pull, though, I'd say play it safe and make sure it dies, because we had quite a few not good pulls in our course of that time. But we'll figure.
You did end up killing her, right?
Yeah, we killed her.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and it wasn't bad. I think we had a pull that they jumped through railings and then killed 2 melee, and then we were fine after that. Those were the only 2 that died.
Those were our sacrifices.
Yeah, it was just totally like I'll take like 5 sacrifices. We run like 5 druids and that, like whatever. I just don't want 6 people dead the whole fight.
Right.
But yeah, that one also not a super long fight, but the pull is very frustrating, and I'm sure we'll figure it out more later. But after that is Hodir, and Hodir isn't too bad. I think we did it in 2 pulls in the weekend raid. And we lost an additional DPS. Well, we had gained something. I think we're at 24 or something with 3 tanks, and it's a 1 tank fight. So, we're down some DPS. I did go ret, but my ret is just it's not keeping up. I need a new weapon or something. I was doing like almost as much like damage on bosses as prot. I was like, I should just be prot, I guess. Like,
right.
Whatever.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I'm like, I could get a ret spec, but it's really not. I don't know.
Yeah. So that, I mean, Hodir can be tough. What I didn't realize the first time we did it, because I think we just had enough heals, it wasn't too big of a deal. When he puts on this like enchant on his weapon, it's called like Frozen Blows. It does a lot of damage to the tank, which I knew about. It just does like a bunch of extra frost damage. It does not really do that much damage to the tank though, so you can just 1 tank. I think the bad strat is having like a frost tank pick it up and take that, but no, you don't need it. No. But during that Frozen Blows, every melee does like 4k damage to the entire raid, which is very annoying. So we raid Divine Sacked for that. And I think it's probably still worth having the tank use a cooldown or like having a pain suppression on the tank, just so that you don't have to worry about the tank as much while you're getting the raid healing done. That was the only issue we had in the weekend raid, and we solved it after we had 1 wipe, and then we solved it, and it seemed like we could go forever on it almost.
Yeah.
That's the majority of the damage.
I do have one question that I was going to research, but maybe you just know. The small white circles, are those just get out of them? Because they kind of pop you around, but they don't seem to do a lot of damage.
Yeah,
are they a buff?
I think you're supposed to just get out of them. I actually don't know if they do anything else.
Because I didn't know if I should be moving the boss to where melee could like squeeze in. Because as a melee, I just stayed out of them. Because when I was in them, I first thought, oh, this is like a buff, like Iron Council. But then like I just kept getting popped away from the boss when I.
Yeah, you definitely don't.
I feel like historically, I just like if there's something on the ground, I just try to move out of it.
I always test it.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, as a healer, it usually doesn't do anything good for me.
Small blue circles.
I was definitely moving out. Small circles are bad, but they really seem like they were doing nothing. I think that's the main point. Yeah. Is that like I was the same way. As a tank, like I was standing in them, I was not standing in them, and I was like, should I move for the melee? And like it just didn't seem like it was doing anything to anybody.
Yeah.
They don't do much damage. They just
the ground.
Well, they eventually at some point when you're in them, like shoot you like 10 yards in one direction or another. Like they just kind of like
maybe
blow
that's
you out
why
of
I was getting shot like around the.
I think they're mini, ice drops, like kind of like the big
I think
one.
that's like where it snows or like ice snows.
But yeah, probably leaving an area for the melee to get in or on the side of the boss is probably a good idea.
Nah.
Yeah, but all of those things are going to matter a lot more for the hard mode, how you're positioning and making sure people can do a lot of DPS, because the hard mode is hard. You have to kill Hodir in 2 minutes. Our weekday raid killed Hodir in 4 minutes, 8 seconds. So not quite there.
Super close.
Yeah, they do refreezing your raid members. Like, DPS does need to like turn and like free them fast, because that is a huge DPS gain.
I think having some like assignment to that and not having it haphazard helps a lot. But again, we were in there to kill bosses. We weren't gonna like wipe to be like, oh, let's see if we can do 2 minutes next. Like,
yeah,
right.
But if you're like a melee DPS, I would recommend running way away from the boss to get him out. But if there's anyone close, I would recommend turning to them first before you go back on the boss. And then ranged DPS should definitely be hitting the ice. I would imagine the ice counts as your parse too. I would imagine.
Yeah, let's tell everyone that at least, and maybe we can get people killing that stuff. But yeah, I mean, you break your friends out, you don't stand in blue stuff, and then you have to very quickly get into a snowdrift, which is not clear the first time because it doesn't look that safe. It doesn't like make sense to me that standing on a snowdrift would protect you from flash freeze, but it does.
Well, and you have to wait. Like, you have to get out of where the snowdrift is going to fall, but you have to be very close because you have about like 0.5 seconds to get into the snowdrift before you're executed or frozen.
It is a wildly small amount of time to get in, but your DBM will yell at you and tell you to get in, and if you just stand right on the outside, you'll be fine. But that's Hodir. That 2 minutes is going to be very, very difficult, I think. But with some gear and some more attempts, I think it'll be very doable for us.
Yeah.
And people have already done it in next gear, so it's definitely doable with like strong play. So I expect we'll be getting that down eventually, but normal, not
class
too bad.
Optimization too, I think, right? Like if you're that sweaty, I feel like.
Yeah. Next was Thorim, and we decided, hey, everyone says Thorim hard mode's the easiest hard mode, so why don't we do Thorim hard mode? So that's how we roughly ended our first night, was wiping 6 times to Thorim hard mode. And there were a couple of reasons. The first reason is just learning the basic fight, which is electricity shoots to Thorim, and then he does a cone in that area once you're in the second phase. So you have to avoid that area. That's like step 1. The problem is that step is hard to like analyze when you're doing hard mode because there's so much other stuff going on with the frost that like I think it's like overwhelming to learn the fight all at once that way. Those of us who like were in the 10-man and saw that fight like a few times already, I think it was a lot easier for us to be like, oh, I got to get out of this. But the first time you see it, it's definitely like, okay, there's blizzards on Frost Nova, there's chain lightning coming out, like there's just all this stuff going on. But making sure that people get out of that is good. I think there's definitely strategies where people are just sitting in it and then like DPSing him down. And that might be like how you do hard.
I don't think you can sit in the like beam from the side though. I think that'll murder you no matter what. Yeah. You don't want to sit in the beam, but I think you can eat the conal. And and as long as you're at full health or at least have like a shield on, you're totally good to go. The problem for us though, which is kind of a unique problem, it wasn't that Thorim was super hard. It's just that we have too many melee DPS. Most guilds I'm seeing kill us on hard mode have like 7 melee DPS. We went in, I'll count for an accurate number, but we went in with something like 10 or 11, and that's too many. Our initial groupings, a chain lightning just murdered the melee. So we had one of our enhancement shamans, because we were on 2 enhancement, because we have too much melee, and he went resto. So we figured, hey, that's 2 birds, 1 stone, right? We have 1 less melee and a resto. People were still getting basically 1 shot. So we ended up making 3 groups.
and I think we had 11. So I think we had 2 groups of 4 and 1 group of 3, and that definitely worked better. It was basically like KT, vanilla KT, where you had people stand on like each point of his dress or like a hand to hand in his back point. And that seemed to be working fine. But if any of the ranged get too close or chain lightning into the melee, it's an insta kill on everybody again. Mm-hmm. That was really like our biggest problem, is that at any point during the fight, 5 of our DPS could just drop dead because of the chain lightning. And in 6 pulls, we really didn't get it to a point where the last one that we did was actually pretty comfortable. We got it pretty far before people chained. But at that point, we were like, forget it. Like, it's the end of the night. Let's go kill Freya and then call it a night. And unfortunately, on our second night of progress, we had 2 additional DPS, our melee DPS. It was sort of just like, yeah, this is whatever. This is not really gonna.
When we attempted it with the 3 groups, everybody was standing real close melee range. So the groups, like, you have to be literally max range with both groups to actually make that like /8. Like, I use /10 to help me just a little bit better, give me leeway. And you can do /10. I had done it before, but that night we were, for some reason, the groups were just like up closer. And yeah, it was, that chain lightning is a bitch with all the melee.
Yeah, with that amount of melee, it is definitely hard. The only other call out for Thorim normal is like not that big of a deal because he does so much less damage and he has so much less health. But the big struggle that I think people were running into, and we didn't realize it at the time, is that his you have to taunt every 15 seconds on him. Every 15 seconds, he does an unbalancing strike, which reduces your defense by 200, making you crittable, and you take a bunch of damage. The problem is that the taunt DR is 20 seconds for it to reset. So after a few taunts, they were getting progressively shorter. So it was very easy to just, like, if you crit, you just accidentally would pull back from the other tank. But the problem is, after I think 5 or maybe 6 taunts, he'll actually DR fully and become immune to taunt. So that was something that we didn't realize. We were like, oh, I guess taunt's missing. Like, we were like, what the hell is going on? But logs showed that it was immunity. So what you have to do is every like 4 or 5 taunts, it's a good idea to just use a cooldown and just hold it for an additional like 5 seconds. What I did was I just held it through the entire phase with divine protection, and it just lasts 12 seconds. So I just did that and lived through that, and it reset the DR, and it's very easy from there. But if all that other stuff is going on and you don't realize what's happening, that's just like something that will crush the tanks because you're not taunting off each other anymore, and then you'll die. And it's very easy to die anyway doing hard mode because he does increase damage. But on normal, it's not too bad. It's just a normal tank swap mechanic.
Mel, you're muted.
I just said good to know.
Yeah.
We'll be doing this one later.
Oh yeah, we didn't do it, did we? I was trying to think. As I was explaining this, I was like, I'm trying to figure out like why I don't remember having to do this last night.
Yeah, we just we ran to Hodir right after Auriaya.
Yep. Yeah, so we'll do that tonight. But the gauntlet, I only went in it one time. Didn't seem that bad though. You just have to like stand on the. Yeah, you just have to like stand on the left or right side as like a dude shoots stuff down.
And he's literally got this like bright beaming arm like at the end of the hallway, and the number of people that get killed by that thing.
I love how our initial polls, it was Yip tanking in the main room, not the hallway, and everybody's just running around, killing everything all over the place. And then finally, a few polls later, Harskar's like, so why don't we just stand in the middle so Yip's job isn't so hard here?
Oh, yeah. That's actually a good point, because the arena was actually really a lot of work for me when everyone was standing in a ton of different places, just like whacking them as they came. like the paladin has a lot, but the paladin's really good when stuff is stacked. Like Hammer of the Righteous can only hit things that are stacked. My Avenger's Shield has a chain. So I was running around like a crazy person for that entire couple of minutes of the gauntlet. Like I was high stress the whole time. And then finally, once everyone's stacked, it's like just the easiest thing in the world to just sit there whacking stuff.
Right.
That's a really good call out. Yeah, because that was mayhem for me. But the nice thing is like plate wearers aren't going to get like killed by those ads. So like if a DK grips them in or something like that, you're totally safe to do that. It's not a crazy deal at all. I don't think maybe we had like one person die in all of our attempts on that first part.
Yeah.
But you know, it could happen.
It could.
But Thorim's definitely one. It requires a less melee heavy group comp. I think that we could totally do it. Like we have no issues doing it. It's just asking a little too much of our melee to like stack that perfectly. I think if you have 8 melee, that's like a good number. 2 groups of 4. Make sure the range are nice and far away, and like you probably won't run into issues. But more than that, I think we're getting a little crazy.
Agreed.
So that's Thorim. Very, very doable on normal. Freya is also very doable on normal. So the way her thing works is hard mode's actually very nice because you don't have to kill the 3 elder packs, the 3 elder dudes that are around the room. So it's actually fast to do hard mode. But normal mode is like kind of weird and wild. You can't damage the boss at all, but you have to tank her. And then 6 waves of ads come out, 2 of each type. There's detonators, who are they're basically like the little flower dudes, and they'll explode when they die. And in 10-man, that wasn't a big deal at all in 10-man. In 25-man, though, it kind of kills everybody. So what we were doing was kind of like what we settled on doing was like grouping everything, getting them down to a low health, and then Nova and running, or like pushing them with Typhoon or whatever shamans do, Storm, Thunderstorm. And that ended up making a big difference. I think like the real boomer way to do it is probably just not stack and then just like kill them all slowly, and make sure you have time for people to heal up. I think that's probably like the fine way to do it. Because I don't think more waves spawn while another wave is up. I don't think so.
I think you could probably single target them down.
Yeah, you just single target them down wherever. No, but I tried it on 10-man, which I'll talk. So the other mob type is a big ancient who you just pull to mushrooms, and everyone just has to fight in mushrooms, which is kind of like, okay, that's not hard. Is there anything else that's like, oh, he puts on a debuff that you have to run away with that like hits people?
The tree,
but I think is
a big deal.
Oh yeah, a tree will spawn and heal everything to full. So you need to kill the tree when it spawns, but it has very, very little health. So as long as your range DPS are turning, you can kill it very quickly. It's just weird if like you're moving stuff and then the tree spawns in like a weird area. So just you got to watch your timers because they spawn in super duper weird areas. And then the last mobs are a group of 3 mobs. I honestly don't know what 2 of them do, but one of them you don't tank and you have someone kind of kite a little bit. But they have such low health, and you have 12 seconds from the first one's death in order to like kill them all, which 12 seconds is kind of a long time. So I think the best thing to do is just have someone like a lock or like someone strong, I don't know, range, start hitting the snap lasher, which is the one that the more you hit it, the slower it moves. So you want to get like an amount of hits on it. So you want to hit it a lot. It'll move slowly and you can kite it around a bit. But I think when it's at like 50% health, you just have everyone just destroy it and then just kill the other 2. I think that's probably fine. They don't have that much health on 25-man. The problem is on hard mode, they end up having twice as much health. And that's where things are probably going to get a little more sketchy. When we did hard mode on 10-man, there was just a lot of extra raid damage going out, and the detonators were murdering people. And one, you take more damage on hard mode, but also I think not having a disc priest made it a lot harder with those detonators, because when everyone's shield, it shielded. It just doesn't matter as much if a detonator goes off somebody because they're just absorbing it. But there's like additional AoE damage going out on hard mode that doesn't go out on normal mode. So that plus that detonator damage was just destroying us on 10 man. It was also 4 a.m. my time. So take that how you will, but I was actually surprised that Freya did seem to have a lot of raid DPS. It might actually be easier on 25 man, to be honest, because you just can end up with like more well-rounded healers. You end up with like a more well-rounded group that way. But then she goes into her second phase, which basically does nothing on normal mode. You just tank her. You still have to kill. I think you still have to kill the trees. And then she's able to be damaged after you go through the 6 ad waves. And then the only thing she does is like put down pods on the ground that you have to move out of, which is like she does that at like 15% health when we were doing it or something. Like it was so low already that it just didn't matter. But we did move just slightly south and that was fine. Again, though, on hard mode, which kind of feels like how it should be done based on like how little we actually see the mechanics. Hard mode, she again has 90% more health. All the mobs do. And that you'll probably see like her secondary mechanics a lot more, like the seed getting plopped down. But heroing on that last phase, like pretty simple.
Yeah.
Freya normal, I would call very easy. And then hard mode, it did seem like there was a lot of raid damage on 10 man, but we'll probably give it a shot in 25 man next week and have a better idea of how hard mode is on Freya. Anything you guys have any thoughts on Freya?
No.
I mean, on normal mode, it seemed pretty easy, right?
Yeah, there really was like nothing going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, the trash seemed a lot harder on Freya.
Yeah, it definitely was. The trash around Freya was harder than normal mode Freya.
Potentially wiped a couple times on that trash, it's fine.
Which again goes into the fact like we just weren't paying that much attention to like what mobs were doing, and like you get punished for it. Like you get punished.
We chain pulled a few times, which really killed us. That was
bad. Yeah. We end up there's some big pats in that room. It's like very worth pulling back and making sure you're not chain pulling. Pretty much in the whole thing, there's a lot of pats. Like just don't chain pull in the Ulduar trash until you're like comfortable with what everything does. That is definitely a wise suggestion. After Freya, though, who comes after Freya?
The tank dude. The tank guy.
After Freya,
what's his name? Mimiron.
Oh, Mimiron. Oh, you mean literally tank?
Yep.
Yes.
How could I forget Mimiron?
Big red.
So I want to say that after 10-man Mimiron, I was like amped up. That was such a fun fight. Like
it was a fun fight.
There's a lot going on, but it's like nothing is like so overly punishing that you're like mad. But there's like still a lot going on, so it's a very, very fun. 25 man was definitely harder than 10 man, but very doable. So he has 4 phases. The first phase, the only thing you really have to worry about is the tank damage. He does like pulse, plasma, pummel.
Yeah.
Plasma pummel, something like that. I didn't realize that it's not just the DBM timer. He actually casts that. So you just use a tank cooldown when he actually does the cast and you'll live. But if you don't do any cooldown, you'll probably die unless all your healers are spamming you. It's like actually a ton of damage. But again, I think it went out once on that phase, and it's the only phase that he does it on. So you only need like 2 tank cooldowns at the worst. There'll be mines around.
Plasma blast? Is that what it is?
Plasma blast. That sounds right. Yeah. He basically just like throws his face at you. Yeah. So very easy, honestly.
There'll be mines around, and our raid lead Harscar was like, all the melee, make sure you look behind you, make sure you see the mines. And I was like, yep, looking behind, seeing the mines. As soon as the thing came out, I was like, oh, run. I ran right into 2 mines, died immediately, and was like the only one dead. And I was like, shaking my head.
That is a punishing like AoE that he does. You do have to be on it to run away, and then if there are mines right behind you, you're kind of screwed. So yeah.
I felt so dumb. I was just like, you literally just said it.
Well, there was one pull where
it's embarrassing.
I don't know. We had done it on Tin Man. I just wasn't paying attention, right, to like where I was standing before the little like laser thing. It was phase 3, right? And I had forgotten that he does the laser like turn thing again. And so I was standing in the wrong spot. And you don't have very much time to get away once those lasers start to activate.
Thing, the middle part, yeah.
Yeah. Just so you know, you have to be on the other side. Don't stand where those lasers are going to start shooting.
Yep. Or run the direction opposite of what it's turning so that
there's a really
get on the other side faster.
They hit a really large area of space.
Is it a cone? The like further out it goes, is it a cone or something?
Well, it's just like his arms are like here, and there's just like a large area of space that it hits. So
I was just saying, don't run with it because it'll take longer to get out of
melee. If you're not a melee, it's probably a little harder. If you're a melee, it's so funny how much of a joke it is. Because like it literally takes you 2 seconds to get right behind it, and he like doesn't even make a full turn with that.
No, it shouldn't be hard as a caster, but if you're positioned correctly.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Mimiron's second phase really, you don't tank it, right? No. Do you tank it? You don't tank it. There's no one.
Isn't it just the heart? Or the head?
Yeah, very little to do as a tank on this fight, by the way. Which is maybe why I liked it so much.
He's like, this one's great.
And then the third phase comes out and his head's floating around. Assault bots come up, and we didn't realize at the time that you don't tank those because they hit for 50k a hit. You just kind of want to. I think the best thing to do is stun them, get some threat on them, and then just kind of kite them around with your taunt or whatever you have to do to move them.
Yeah, all stuns work. I was using 3 bubble kidney shots on them, and that was basically long enough for everybody to kill them.
Nice.
Just don't do that right in the middle of the raid.
My personal opinion, and I could be wrong, it seems easier to just have the range also kill the assault bots, because when they drop magnets, which you use to bring down the boss. We saved 2 of them and they stack, so you do like a ton more damage to the boss. So it kind of seems worthwhile to just get those magnets out ASAP and then just like blow up the boss when he comes down. But that could be wrong, but those assault bots hurt more than the boss does. Having the boss like down and stunned is good, but either way, not insanely hard on that part. The last part, it does get a little hectic, especially if you're not paying attention. You have to kill each of the 3 parts at the same time, and this one is actually not that forgiving. It's like 6 seconds or something like that. You actually do have to kill them like pretty close to each other, but the range can hit the top head, like the top head part. Which makes that kind of confusing or like more difficult to manage. So you need your range just pumping on the head, and because we have so many melee, like they weren't like killing it first, which I think if the head goes down like first or like is the lowest one, it's probably a little bit easier to kill everything. But we had to like pull back for a second from everything else to make sure that the head would die. But he does like a combination of all the abilities, but it kind of removes like the harder ones. So he will spin around, but he does like almost no tank damage. There's no like assault bots anymore or anything like that. So you just tank them in the middle. And you avoid rockets that come out. You avoid the shockwaves still happen in that phase. Do you remember? Do we have to run away from them?
I don't remember ever running away. It probably does on hard mode though.
Okay, yeah. So that last phase isn't crazy. If you save hero for it, it's very, very short. You just have to watch out for the rockets that are still coming out, and then he still does that turning thing. But Mimiron, like, there's a lot going on, but it was actually really fun because there's like it's all so manageable. You can like see all the mechanics clearly.
Right.
Yeah. So definitely fun. Very, very doable. Hard mode probably going to be a real pain to do. Like fire follows you or something during it. Like
there's a way to tank the fire. I've heard Resto Druid does it the best, but I haven't looked into exactly how it works. But you can tank the fire and corral it because I've seen clips of it done. I think Resto Druid, like a tree, is the best thing to tank it.
Well, so maybe that won't be as bad then as I'm thinking, but I think it will be pretty hectic with just how many mechanics there are. But honestly, the mechanics again are so forgiving that, especially on 10-man, like you can just say the mechanics and then pull and see them as you go. You don't need to be like hyper prepared for each phase to be able to get through that phase. But Mimiron, very, very cool, very fun. Yeah, the tank guy. And now that we're done with a tank guy, we can move on to the hardest fight, in my opinion.
The hardest normal, Vezax.
Yeah, the hardest normal. Let me be very clear. General Vezax is crazy. I'm gonna need like a ranged perspective from you, Mel, for some of this. But for melee, you don't really do anything. You just sit behind the boss and you DPS them, right? There's no really,
unless you're on kick duty.
Right, you do have to kick, which is it's the funniest. The like effect that he does when you need to kick is so obvious and absurd. It puts this giant like circle around him. It's like the only thing you can see when you're up on him, and then you just gotta kick it.
Which is funny. It's similar to that one where the ads you have to take into the water and stuff like that. Like I was like, okay, I can't tell when they have 10 stacks. They're like, it turns red. And I'm like, what turns red? And then I saw it and I was like, oh yeah, the entire body just turns red. Yeah, okay. That was silly. I don't know why I kept, okay.
Yeah, the kicks, basically Thames like just tells you just have 3 kickers and Thames tells you kick 1, kick 2, kick 3, and it's super easy to keep it up. Just if you're a rogue or a warrior, just make sure you've pooled enough energy or rage, and like you're not just spamming your buttons, because that'll be a problem. But as long as you're pooling a little bit, like you'll always be able to hit it pretty easily. And so yeah, the first one is the one that I've found to be the hardest, because it's a lot of other information going out, and it's hard to kind of hear that first kick 1. But I didn't realize the change in graphical stuff, so I'll have to watch for that doing the first kick.
I wonder if it's more obvious in front as the tank versus like behind. Because as the tank, it like hurts my eyes when he has to be kicked. It's like I'm like,
come on.
Good God. But yeah, so very easy for the melee. On 10-man, I'm pretty sure like one shaman can do all the kicks. And you're good to go. For the tank, there's only depending on your strategy, there is a strategy where the Surge of Darkness comes out, or I think Surge of Darkness is its name, where he does a ton of extra damage. Totally fine with a strong cooldown, pain suppression, divine protection. You're not going to die. Well, you might die, but as long as the healers know that it's coming, you won't die. I was finding like divine sacrifice not strong enough to keep me alive, like just the base damage reduction. So like maybe a divine sacrifice plus a bubble or something to keep that mitigation part still on might be worthwhile, but it's like a minute between each of them. So as long as you have pain suppression, divine protection, and then just something else, whether it's like divine protection plus a trinket for avoidance, as long as you have like 3 things that you can do, you'll reset again, and pain suppression can be used again, divine protection can be used again. So you only really need 3 things.
Oh, maybe I should grab the glyph for 2 minutes off the shield wall.
What's the shield wall? It's 5 minutes.
It's 5, and if you get the glyph, I could probably switch a glyph out and make it 3 minutes, and then I could use with divine sac. I could use what's it called? Last stand, and then with the pain suppression, I could use a trinket, and then I could use because shield. Although it does take your shield wall down to 40% instead of 50%, though.
Yeah, I mean, you'll probably be fine either way. But I think the biggest thing is that like healers need to understand how much damage it is, because his non-buff damage, like his non-Surge of Darkness damage, I was dying to it sometimes if there was like a lot of raid stuff going on, because he just like continually trucks you. It also doesn't help, like Prop Paladin is also the worst thing to tank it with because you like their mana issues. And I went with a spec that got rid of my mana issues, but it reduces my like threat capabilities. So like there's a trade-off there. So it might just be like fine on Warrior. Like you might just like not even have a big deal on Warrior. It felt tough for me. We only had one real like threat issue, and it was our mage. Well, let me explain. The reason there's a threat issue is because one of his attacks puts like a pool on the ground that does 100% extra damage for the ranged. So your ranged are gonna, if they hero early, you're gonna hero in like the first 30 seconds to 200 or like 2 times damage casters while you're as a paladin. It gets a little bit wild. But we were only having like one issue. We were throwing out Hands of Salvations as well too. Paladins do have a way to get rid of some threat for people, so there were some ways to handle it. But honestly, our biggest problem was dealing with the vapors and then just like having the range rotate properly, and then they get a debuff called like Faceless or something, Mask of the Faceless, I don't know, but it does like an AoE around you, and people were dying to that a lot. Any thoughts, Mel? Because I don't look at that part of the screen.
Yeah, so a couple things. I think there's so much going on, and that's probably why it will take us a little bit longer to master the fight, right? Is because you can get one aspect down, and then you have to really incorporate all the other ones. But when we did it on the 10-man, we had the healers standing out with the ranged, and that was a chaotic mess, right? So we did the 25-man, the healers stood on top of the tank, which seemed to be a lot easier for us. At least we weren't running around like crazy, right? But what happens is these big things come out where a lot of healing's needed, but you have very limited mana, and they weren't pulling the pools to us quickly enough that we were able to regen mana as fast as we needed. Also, minor note, as a priest, when you have a shield on, you don't get mana from the green pool. So I'd like stand in there and I'd have like 5 stacks. I'd get out and I'd still be at 11% mana. And I'm like, what is happening? So I'd like go back in. So I died a couple times. I'd go back in because I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll get another stack. But it was my 6th stack, and then it would just murder me. Right. And I was just like, what the hell? Like, how does that happen? And
so it actually has to damage you in order for you to get that mana back. So if another priest shields, you could actually you could troll your friends pretty bad, it sounds like, by shielding them when they go into the vapor.
Be like, you will not get mana. You will not get mana. You need to get off the aggro list here. I think that was one big lesson we learned. I learned. And then the other things were, so at the end, at one point, those green puddles, they have their green. And then there is a good amount of space on the outside of that green that also still hits you. So
it's like,
be careful.
Enormous. I had to move out of it for like, it was when the when the healers were standing on the tank, vapors would appear like next to me. But the problem is I had to move like way further than I was expecting. Like you have to move almost like the pool size further away to make sure
it's like
getting these
it's
stats.
Definitely a lot bigger than you think. And I think that hit some of our melee too. So we've got to get a better understanding of like how far to pull that. We also had trouble with like we were over melee stacked, I think. And so at some point the like mark would come to melee. Which isn't supposed to happen. It's supposed to only go to ranged, but either we were just slightly outside of the melee window that they have, or enough of our ranged had died that it didn't have anybody else to go on. But the 2 abilities that happen out there's one that's like, hey, something's getting shot at you, and you just have to move away. It will shoot where you're standing when it tells you it's coming. So if you move away, it's not going to hone and find you. So you just have to move away a little bit enough. If it hits you, it just does a little bit of damage and it knocks you back, which is annoying. But if you're around anybody that it's shooting at, you also have to move away. It doesn't just hit them. But those are the pools that the range stand in to get the buff to haste and mana use or something. And then the other one is this like mark that you'll get. And the mark gives it like leeches life from the players and gives it to the boss. So if you're within range, I think if you're within range of any other players, it will leech health to the boss. And so you have to run away from everybody to get out of that range. And there will be like a little beam that's like connecting you, so you'll know if it's hitting multiple people.
This sounds like it sucks, man.
Oh, it's so night and day, range versus melee. Like your ranged this is the fight your ranged actually need to know how to do, unfortunately.
Being a healer trying to heal the tank with all these mechanics, like we were in 10-man, I was like, this is why you were like, somebody's got to heal me. And I'm like, I don't even know where I'm standing right now.
Listen, first of all, though, I do want to say when I say that, I'm just pointing out a problem, not
I know.
It's just like literally I will die every time.
Literally somebody has to heal me.
But yeah, I mean, this is one that your ranged actually need to know what's going on and they can't phone in. We brought in, not to put them on blast, we brought somebody in at the last second because we had an extra slot. We brought in Casma Shaman and he just died in the first like 15 seconds every time. It's like we brought him in after the explanation of the fight.
Poor Casma.
It's just not one that you wing. Like you actually need to have a plan for this fight. And even on 10-man, man, like when we went in being like, oh, how do you do this? Like, oh, you stand out here and like move away from it.
Okay.
We got our asses kicked on 10-man. It was actually like pretty shocking. But hey, we figured it out. We got it down. And it only gets easier from there. But it will definitely there are going to be guilds that are not going to be able to do it.
That are stuck on Yogg or General, yeah.
Yeah. And then once General's down, you end up on Yogg. Yogg-Saron. Now, Yogg-Saron is an old god. He's actually imprisoned there by the Titans, and slowly over time is... anyway, that's his lore, but he at first is just like an illusion of a helper, which I think is really cool, by the way. I'm gonna talk about it really quick. It's really sick. You have like a helper named Sarah who does these like things that are supposed to help you. Like Yogg-Saron is pretending that he's helping you, but he's actually hurting you. So like Sarah's anger is a damage that she puts onto the ads that you have to kill at the beginning in the first phase, and it does 12,500 damage every 3 seconds, but increases physical damage done by 12,000. So it starts beating on the tank for like as much damage as like it's getting done to it. So it's like all these little things like, oh, it'll like buff you, but it like also hurts you. So it's pretty cool. The challenge is there's these like poison clouds that move around and spawn more ads. And the first time we tried this, we had everyone go into the middle, not other than the range, and just told the range to figure it out. And we spawned...
Which we did.
We spawned roughly 10,000 ads, if I had to guess. Melee, we're spawning them like crazy. First of all, it is bigger than the cloud, like always. Like if you're like near the cloud, it might spawn one.
They move weird.
They move a little odd. So what we ended up doing was trying to do the dad strat where you like tank everything to kill it at the front door and then just have one tank and like 1 or 2 DPS kill it on Sarah. But we ended up again throwing that out because I think we were like taking too long maybe that way.
Well, we hit the enrage, remember? Because we did that.
Yeah, like 1,000 started coming out anyway, right?
Yeah, or I think we maybe got like further and then like couldn't kill him because
you're right. We got the real enrage. Yeah. We got the full enrage in the last phase. You're right.
Yeah.
That did happen to us.
Which is 15 minutes. Apparently, that was our phase 3 death. Was 15 minutes long.
Oh my goodness. Well, we probably had a lot. But basically, you just kind of have to figure it out. Like, everyone just has to get used to the poison clouds. The thing that kind of, like, keyed into me was, like, the cloud is moving in one direction, okay? You want to be on the opposite side of the cloud.
Yeah.
I noticed some people were, like, in front of it and would move, like, 10 feet, and then the cloud would catch up to them, and they'd move 10 feet, and the cloud would catch up to them. You want to be on the other side of the cloud, so you're behind it, and that way it will never like pat into you. You're always just kind of like catching up to it. But those clouds,
not all the clouds move the same direction.
Not all the clouds move the same direction.
Right.
You kind of have to see what's around you, and sometimes, especially if you're a melee, that just might mean like getting out. It is so better to just get out than like spawn a bunch of ads. However, the ads do come really slow at first. Like, you should probably spawn 1 or 2 early, but only have the tank do it, and not like how I do it, where I just do it whenever I feel like it. And then, I was definitely spawning some in the middle occasionally. So, it's a tough life out there. There is a decent range. I realized though, like, you don't have to have the ads on top of Sarah. You just have to have like 5 to 10 yards or something is fine. So you have a little bit of leeway to make sure you're getting around. But honestly, the clouds were the hardest part for us. Like, after the clouds, it's like kind of easy. First of all, this is with all of them up, by the way. This was easy mode. We had all 4 helpers up. So that allows us to reset our insanity. That's the biggest thing. You do more damage and stuff like that, and like take reduced damage or something. The really big thing, though, is that Freya lets you reduce your sanity by going into these green lights. On the +1 mode, where you get the hard mode loot, you only have Thorim helping. And so you have to like not lose all your sanity and get mind controlled. So you have to like play well. So that's going to be a little bit harder, but the fight itself makes a lot of sense. In the second phase, it's a lot like Cthulhu. Like, this is a straight ripoff of Cthulhu, honestly. There's tentacles that come up. One grabs people. It can be bopped, ice blocked, or bubbled, and then you can just get down immediately. That's like a great way to start out.
Can you human trinket?
I don't think you can human. I don't think so. You need to be like immune.
But you can cast. Are you talking about the constrictors? You can cast. You can heal. You can do pretty much anything.
Yeah. So it does like 7,500 damage a tick or something though. Like, it is like annoying to stay in it, but we definitely had people staying in it. There's no reason not to bot people early on though, just to like make it easier. The Crusher Tentacle, which like I like don't fully understand the mechanic. They do something that you need to hit them with a melee hit, but they'll kill you if you go into melee. So you can have a paladin run up and just judge the thing from like 10 feet away. So we just had our off tank sitting there just like judging over and over again. If you're the only tank, there's actually nothing to do. You only need 1 tank. So you can just like run over and judge. So on 10 man, that's what I was doing. The Crusher, so spellcasters kill the Crusher, while like a paladin will just judge it over and over. And then we did find out too that because some of our casters were standing in the green beam while killing the Crusher to just keep their sanity high. But you do apparently less damage while you're in the green beam. Yeah, so definitely only hop over to the green beam for the time that you need it. Because you do want to clear the tentacles as quickly as possible. It just makes life easy when you're not like running into slow tentacle issues. Yeah. The cool thing is the people who get to go down, and this, I didn't know what this fight did, but this kind of made me mad when I was like looking into this. Basically, you go down into these portals and you're like reenacting points in like Azeroth history, except that it's like, what's down there, Bob? You went down there.
So there's like one room that looks like, like the main room at the Death Knight, the Ebon Blade, where you go to buy the stuff for the Ebon Blade rep. It looks like that room. And then there's one room that looks like Stormwind, the main castle room where you do the Onyxia chain, you end it, and all the things spawn there in the throne room. And then the other one is, oh God, what's the other one is like right outside the where you fight 3 drakes, like where you zone in. It's like that. It's like that room. Sanctum. Yeah, the Obsidian Sanctum. I think those are the 3 that I remember. There might be a 4th one. And then the brain room is like opens up a door that's basically where you came in. And once you kill all the, like, you run up to these mobs and they turn into tentacles. And once you kill all the tentacles, you bust ass into the room and try to deal damage to the brain. And yeah, it's pretty cool. And getting there, it's really cool as a rogue because you sprint at the start, well, I've realized I should be saving and flip-flopping of sprint one time I go down and then rocket boots the other time. But as soon as you kill all the things at the other end, you can rocket boot or sprint. Then, like, I was the first one to the heart, like, every time. It was really cool. Or the brain, not the heart. But, yeah, it was a pretty cool thing. And then you have a timer, and you just have to get out before the timer goes off, or you go insane. You don't want to push it too far. I usually started running out at like 8 seconds, but I probably could have pushed it to 5, but I didn't want to be the one guy that goes insane first by staying in the brain area.
Yeah, so basically just like Cthulhu, you get teleported to his tummy and you have to kill some stuff down there before you can kill the boss. And then, just like N'Zoth in retail, I didn't know about this, but in BFA, when N'Zoth got released, they released these like nightmare things where you like go kill stuff like in Stormwind that are like taking over. It's the old god stuff is just reused and recycled over and over. They're all the same. It's all the same nonsense. But either way, you once you do enough damage to the brain, you're launched into the final phase, where there are unkillable ads that spawn while you kill the boss. However, Thorim will kill them for you. So as long as Thorim is helping, he'll murder them, and they do less damage the more damage done to them. So they like shrink as you deal damage. So in the hard mode, where you have only Thorim up, they'll still die. But in the hard mode with no Thorim up, you basically just have to like get them down to small size and then just tank them all and hope you kill the boss fast enough that you can like handle that. The normal hard mode, though, the real challenge is managing your insanity. The whole time you're like losing insanity to different mechanics. And the big one, though, is that at the end he starts doing this gaze at you and you have to look away with your character to not lose insanity. So
this is where your shadow priests and your warlocks become extremely handy, because they're throwing up dots and then still channeling, and they can turn their back while still channeling. And so that's why everyone says they're so good on Yogg, is because they can do so much damage with their back turned to the boss.
Yeah. And for healers, at least priests, and I'm pretty sure all healers, you don't have to be facing the boss to heal. So don't ever turn around. Like, just have your back face to the boss the entire time and you can heal.
Smart.
Unless you penance.
Yeah, it will turn you. Yeah. Don't penance during the beam, okay?
Perfect. But it's really not that bad. Managing insanity with the green lights up is super duper easy. You just run over and get your insanity back. That first phase, though, was just kind of annoying to handle, but I think it won't be that big of an issue going forward.
Right.
It's definitely possible to do it with just Thorim. And if we had a ton of time and it wasn't like 1 a.m. when we killed Yogg, maybe we would have done some attempts that way, but just getting it down was important to us. And then now that we know all the fights, it's going to be a lot easier to adapt to the hard mode settings and figuring out how to handle all that. But Ulduar, very fun. Very happy with the difficulty. Normal will pose challenges to certain guilds, and then hard mode is going to crush some people's guilds. Not like obviously crush them because they're optional, but like when we're going to go through hard modes, it's going to take us some time. Like, this is not something we're going to do next week. We're going to have to like ramp up to this and get some gear. But it's very fun. I love how many mechanics there are for everything. There's just stuff to do on every fight. And none of them seem so annoying that I'm going to be like annoyed in a month, where I'm like, God, I'm so sick of this boss where I have to do this dumb thing the whole time. Maybe Flame Leviathan, but I kind of like being in the vehicles, actually. I think it's fun. We're like goofing around for the first 30 minutes of raid, just like killing stuff.
Yeah, and it gives us a lot of stuff to keep working on instead of just focusing on gear, and rounding out your BIS list. It's like, okay, this week we're going to try this, and then I think it's really good.
Progression longer, which I think is exciting, right? Because I think that's what happens with most raids as you get in farm mode way too quickly, that it just becomes boring.
Yep. Yeah. Especially for like heals and tanks, like DPS, you're always like, okay, I can chase this parse this week, or this and that, and push it harder. And then with tanks, I guess you do get to like start pushing your DPS harder and stuff like that. It can be fun, but I think this is just overall a really good raid, and I'm excited to keep going on it.
This is one that kind of needs to be long too, because like it's a long tier, but there will be stuff to do. There's going to be stuff to progress. Progression for us is probably going to be like a month. Algalon, like you have to do a lot of the hard modes just to get to Algalon, and then you have an hour to prog him. So like it's very interesting, and I'm very excited for what's left to come. But definitely a lot. We're running 2 raids, so we're running 4 or 5 days in a row of raiding. Can definitely end up being a lot, but what else we got to do with our lives?
It's crazy to think. Just the difference in us three from when we started this podcast, the difference in, someone called in with a voicemail not too long ago, Yip, and they're like, you guys call yourself casual, but you've already done all the 25-man Naxa achievements, and like, I'm casual. I can't even imagine having all of that done, like until Ulduar's out, like we probably won't even have that done. I was like, yeah, I guess we have leveled up quite a bit as a guild going to each expansion.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the big difference between our weekday and our weekend raid. Like our weekday raid, since the first pull of Molten Core, has just been like getting like refined over and over again.
Right.
Like the atmosphere, like people's mindsets and stuff. And a lot of people's mindsets are similar, where it's just like, well, I guess we should do this, and then we'll do it like oh, we get 5 conquest things a day. We should all be like, a lot of us are just getting on and doing it because it's like, we should do. It's like,
I mean, you look at me and like my mindset from when I first joined the guild to now, I mean, is completely, I'm a different person. I mean, like I was farming for the Fell Striker, and I was like, old Bob would look at me like, what the hell are you doing wasting all this time for trash? Like I was just like, who have you become? And it's just like, and I think a lot of people, have changed mindsets over the time, and like we're just becoming a more galvanized unit,
Yeah. I mean, this, I've never been in a guild over 3 expansions / 3 years.
Same, so never.
It is like I think most people have not experienced this kind of like, we've been doing this for a long time together.
Yeah.
So like it does definitely change like your mindset, and like either we're just people that you interact with a lot. So a lot of people end up on the same page. Like the way that we do loot would not work in a new guild, or like it wouldn't work in like a semi-new guild. But because everyone's been playing together for a long time, it's just like, all right, Hearthscape is gonna pan out the loot. Like, it's basically most of it. And everyone's like, all right, yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, so Ulduar is great. I'm super looking forward to the hard mode progression though. That's where I think like the real tank stuff is going to come out. I've enjoyed going away from like parse mindset to like, I need to live through this fight. Like, how do I live through this fight?
Right. It's exciting.
Yep. Well, just as I figured, we're not going to have time for news, but we did talk about some of the news throughout the podcast, just to let everybody know, the Serenite bug, where there was a slaves of Serenite, the daily quest, each of the little slaves was taking 500 gold from you. It's been fixed. There's a 6-month WoW subscription bonus. If you already did the year, you get it also. You get a little buddy pet, a mount in retail if you do retail, and then and then you could also skip straight to Saffron and KT in Naxxramas now. So if you want to do that to like fill out any little spots you had, if you do it in 25-man, you get, extra loot. If you do it in 10-man, you get 25-man loot in there. So yeah, if you want to do that, that's
worth
there.
Doing.
Yeah, I mean it's really fast, and the more gear you get, like it'll be even easier. But if you're looking to like fill out some pieces, to kind of help you in your Ulduar progression, starting out the first 20 minutes of raid doing that might not be a bad idea. But yeah, that's about. We had some other news we might have delved into a little bit more. I really want to talk about this tier list from Wowhead, but we're just not going to have time this week. So I'm going to close this out. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at WC Reloaded. You can follow the Mash Those Buttons Network at the Mash Network. We want your WoW stories. Email them to wcrpodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to interact with the host of this show or host of any show on the MASH network, it's mash.gg/Discord. We are looking to probably start our own Discord soon. So everybody that's been asking for that, we'll have it set up soon. It'll be bare bones, but yeah, we'll get that set up. Just the Ulduar hype needs to like die down a bit and for us to have time. How can you help the podcast? Leave us ratings and reviews on iTunes or Spotify. Like and subscribe and hit that bell on YouTube. Tell your friends, your guild about us. Post us on Reddit. Post us wherever you want to. Yell us out at Walmart. Thank you so much. You can help the podcast by using code RELOADED at restedxp.com. You can also join our Patreon at patreon.com/Warcraft Reloaded. And yeah. All right, Ryan, where can we find you?
Anywhere you like. You can find me. I'm like Yippidin or Yipbot on Benediction. I have a YouTube channel called TheYipShow. I'm about to become a dark and darker content creator because that game is sick. If you guys haven't checked it out, go play that game. It's not actually open. There's a play test coming in February, so it's not open yet. But
okay.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I guess I'm on Twitter. I don't know. Find me on in game.
And Mel, what about you?
You can find me in game on Mel Arena. That's all.
No Twitter.
I gotta go eat. Don't we have like 15 minutes?
Yeah, we have 15 minutes.
Food.
All right, and you can find me on Twitter at Blazin_Bob. That's BLAZZIN_BOB. You can find me on Twitch, streaming regularly, and this show live, and my most recent show that I'm started back up, season 3 of We Are Survivors, we covered Last of Us Part 1 and Part 2, and now we're covering the TV show. If you'd like to catch that live, you can catch it live here. You can also find it on our YouTube, and you can find it on iTunes and Spotify. We Are Survivors. All right, guys, let's get out of here. Thank you. And yeah, did I close that out quick enough?
Yep.
Yes, bye.
Later, guys. Thank you very much for checking out Warcraft Reloaded podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss any future content.